Good evening, everyone. We will, oh, thank you. Usually don't get that. We will call the Planning Commission to order. Commissioner Amelia Lopez, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, regarding public comments for items listed and not listed on the agenda.
Chair, can we do roll call first, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call. I'm sorry.
Chair Armstead,
Here.
Vice Chair Quill.
Here.
Commissioner Daly.
Here.
Commissioner Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Sherrick.
Present.
Commissioner Garcia.
Here.
Commissioner Flores and Carrascos are excused, and Commissioner Ivan Garcia is not present at the moment.
Okay. Now, for public comments on items listed and not listed on the agenda, a 3-minute limitation shall apply to each member of the public who wishes to address the Planning Commission on any item on the agenda, excluding public hearings. There is no limit to the number of items that may be discussed within the 3-minute time limit. Ms. Meamber, do you have the administration of oath for our public speakers, please?
If you're here and want to be speaking, if you could please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do. I do. Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda? Okay, thank you. We'll start inviting the speakers up. Let's see, consent calendar.
Chairperson, so I think just right now you can call up anyone if they're here to speak on an item not on the agenda. If all the cards in front of you have a specific agenda number,
Correct.
then I think it's better to wait till we
Until
get
that
to
agenda
that
item.
number.
Okay.
And so if no one said they're here to speak for an item not on the agenda, then you could proceed to the consent calendar.
Okay. Consent calendar. Consent items are routine in nature and may be enacted in one motion. All public and non-public hearings will be open at one time. Any item may be discussed separately upon request of a member of the Planning Commission or member of the public. Does staff have any updates to the consent calendar? No. Is there anyone wishing to speak on the consent calendar? Therefore, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, then we're ready for the,
Madam Chair, I will have to abstain. I was absent at the last meeting.
okay. All right, are we ready to take a, all right, go ahead.
Chair Armstead.
Yes?
Hold on. Madam Chair, we, on item number 2, we have a presentation on the Navigation Center, which is actually on consent. So for the benefit of those who are here to make the presentation, I think it will be nice to have that presentation given. So, Mr.
Okay. That is part of the consent
Mike
calendar.
Rosales and then Trina Perez would be providing us with some presentation. You might be called to answer questions, Trina. So,
good evening, Commissioner. So tonight on the consent calendar is item number 2 for the city's navigation center. So the project proposed tonight would be to find conformity with the city's navigation center and the general plan. It's located at 796 East 6th Street, within the special purpose zone public facilities. We have a little project history. So Mayor and City Council approvals, December 7th, 2022, approved funding for the Navigation Center. February 1st, 2023, declared a homeless state of emergency. March 15, 2023, approved the property located at 796 East 6th Street for the Navigation Center, SB Hope Campus. May 17, 2023, adopted the Homelessness State of Emergency Implementation Plan, which included developing the SB Hope Campus at the location. And I have some more. All right. And then just a little further that I had down. June 21st, 2023, we approved the allocation and CBDG funds for the construction of the Navigation Center. October 4th, 2023, we approved an annual allocation in general funds for the homeless service sustainability beginning fiscal year 26-27 to help with construction costs. November 1st, 2023, we accepted $800,000 in homeless housing assistance and prevention grant funds for the City Nav Center. So the city's launching the SB Hope, which stands for Homeless Outreach, Education, and Prevention Campus. It's a 200-bed navigation center designed to support the unhoused community. The center is a low-barrier, non-congregate facility that offers comprehensive services in one location, which aims to reduce the presence of unhoused individuals in city streets by providing various services on site, stabilize the unhoused population through accessible support, enhance the quality of life by ensuring safety, security, and dignity, facilitate a transition to permanent housing with private living units for rest and recovery, streamline access to essential services, removing common obstacles to service acceptance, and empower the city to prioritize the needs of the unhoused effectively. The SB Hope Campus represents a commitment to a best practice approach focusing on outreach, education, and prevention, and is a significant step towards addressing homelessness with compassion and efficiency. Here we have the location map for where it's going to be located off of East 6 within the public facility zone. Here we have the aerial map showing the locations around it. We have like a little community gardens, which is here. And then we have a little park here. All right, so the analysis is finding of conformity to the city general plan pursuant to Government Code Section 65402. Which states no construction or authorization of public buildings or structures is permitted if they are subject to the provisions of the adopted general plan or any relevant part of it. The proposed location, intended use, and scope of the project must be reviewed and found consistent with the general plan by the Planning Commission before proceeding with any type of city-built project. The Planning Division has found that the property at 796 East 6th Street, San Bernardino, California, falls within the public facilities zone, which accommodates public services such as social services, uses per Code Section 1910 for special purpose zones. City records and research confirm that the developing of a city navigation center here aligns with the city's zoning designation and the general plan. The proposal also aligns with the city's goal to improve quality of life by reducing the burden of the unsheltered through partnerships and collaborations as outlined in Goal 3, Number 3, Improved Quality of Life of the Mayor and City Council 2021 through 2025, Strategic Goals and Objectives for the City of San Bernardino. So the action in front of the Planning Commission tonight is not to approve a design or approve a project. Instead, it's to find that developing a city navigation center at 796 East 6th Street conforms to the general plan. So here's our existing site looking north. Here we are looking west. Pretty rural area. Looking south. And looking east. And today our recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt resolution, not 2019, 24023, finding the project statutorily exempt from CEQA pursuant to Public Resources Code Section 21080B4 of the State CEQA Guidelines, Section 15268, 15269, and Government Code Section 65660, and categorically exempt pursuant to Section 15332 for infill development, and finding conformity with the current zoning that the proposal to develop and establish a city navigation center conforms to the current public facilities zone designation based on the findings of fact. And we can answer any questions if you have any.
I have a question. Can you go back to the aerial view, the map? That you said that was a park next door, like a baseball field?
Yeah, it's like a little park right here. It's a remnant park. It's been kind of out of service, but it's used once in a while. Boys and Girls Club was using it for a little bit when it was situated right here. It was like a little Santa's fire department, some sort of community efforts.
Can you refresh my memory? Will the navigation center have some kind of security, or what happens if there's, children playing at that park? Is there some sort of...
Yes, the navigation will have security 24 hours a day.
Okay,
And security measures, cameras, the whole niner.
thank you.
I have a question. So, residents at this facility, will they be, kind of background will be done? If this is a public park next to it, it looks like it's partially fenced, but there is a public access. So, will there be backgrounds, if the city's going to own it, will there be backgrounds done on this facility?
I'm going to bring up Trina. She has some of that in-depth information for you.
Thank you.
Cassandra's here.
Yes, so the answer to your question, you were asking if there's going to be background checks on any of the occupants who will be residing at SB Hope Campus, the city's navigation center. Was that your question?
Correct,
clarifying?
yes.
So no, we're not running background checks. This is a low barrier navigation center. So when I say low barrier, I'm specifically referring to removing as many impediments as possible to allow individuals to have that entry. This is going to reduce foot traffic in the community. It's going to reduce the visibility of the unhoused, in the community. The only demographic, the only demographic that's not going to be allowed to reside at this facility are PC 290s, sex offenders. And the reason for that is because there will be women. There'll be women at this facility.
So I'm guessing there's some type of background done in order to,
So to make sure that we don't have PC 290s, our outreach workers will work conjointly with law enforcement. And I'm sorry, I thought he was asking the question. That's why I kept looking at him. Our outreach workers will work conjointly with the local law enforcement to run that background check to make sure that there are no sex offenders who gain access.
thank you. I'm sorry, I have another question. Is it, so it's low barrier, that's considered temporary?
So when I say low barrier, okay, so let me give you a perfect example. In this city and in many cities, shelters are operated in a very antiquated fashion. And when I say antiquated, I mean there are a lot of stipulations and barriers. If you have a sobriety issue, you can't come in. If you have a spouse who's a husband, wife, children, dad has to go somewhere else. If you have a pet, you can't bring your animal with you. So as a result, you have a lot of the unhoused communities that say, you know what, I'll just stay on the street. So by removing those barriers, we're now removing obstacles and making it easier for people to gain access, come off the streets, get the help they need.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I have a question, and maybe you can address this. Is this a male-female facility and children? Is it mixed?
Because of the limited space, we will not have children. So it will be male and female, and there will be designated areas for the men and the women, but we will also have a couples area. So if you wanted to stay with your partner, you can do so. But it'll be men and women, yes, no children.
Is there a time frame regulation of some sort?
So the good thing about a navigation center is that it extends the time frame where a person could stay and receive actual help. Typically with the navigation center, you're looking at 180 days up to 6 months. And that may seem like a lot of time, but really it's not, because you have to help someone, one, get stabilized, two, get access to their ID, birth certificate, social security card, get connected to some type of workforce development or training, or get connected to benefits that they're entitled to. All of that takes time, not to mention housing navigation. So they have a pretty good length of time to receive help.
Will there be alcohol or substance abuse directors or advisors, supervisors?
So it will have a substance use disorder treatment in terms of counseling. Again, because this is a low barrier, we understand that people coming in, they're going to have sobriety issues. We're not going to turn you away from that because of that reason. What we will ask is that you do not use any drugs on the campus, but it's harm reduction, low barrier, and they'll work with the individuals with substance use disorder counseling and treatment.
Okay. I have one last question, if I may. Is there a time that the facility opens and closes, or can they enter all hours of the night?
So there will be curfew set. Now, there will be exceptions. So let's say you have a job. You'll have some people who are able-bodied. They're able to get connected to employment. So, of course, you'll be able to make those exceptions. But for the most part, it will have a curfew, and the only way around the curfew is if law enforcement, let's say it's 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, they come across somebody, they'll be able to gain access to help someone have a place to stay.
Thank you.
Maybe I didn't see it in the staff report, but is there a specific number of beds set aside specifically for the unhoused individuals in San Bernardino?
So we're looking at 200 beds.
The 200
Mm-hmm.
beds? And that's dedicated for San Bernardino?
That's San Bernardino. That's
city, the
prioritizing
city of San
our city.
Bernardino.
We have the highest number. It won't be hard to fill.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Hey, just a couple of questions, if that's okay. So I think my first question is channeling my wife. You said pet friendly?
Pet friendly.
Pet friendly. Okay, so this means that unhoused individuals that have pets will be able to come to this facility and do what needs to be done?
Yes, and just so that I'm completely transparent, let me define pets. I know some people may have a boa constrictor. They may have, just different variations of pet. But specifically, we're talking about cats and dogs here.
Cats and dogs.
Okay.
That's right. All right, cool. The other question that I had, and I realize that the question before the commission right now is really just a finding of conformity with the general plan. Is that correct? That is correct. Okay. So,
Yes.
So questions around how this is going to get operated, the details around it, not necessarily purview of this conversation. This is us really determining finding of conformity with the general plan that this land use type is allowed for where we're talking about. Is that right?
Absolutely, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, Commissioner Daly, yes, that is true. There's an opportunity for that when the item actually goes before the City Council, but the task before the Planning Commission this evening is to make that general plan conformity finding.
Okay, wonderful. I have questions about who's going to operate this and all of those questions, and if you have those answers, great. But at this point, I'm happy to make a motion considering that this was already on consent.
So although this is a city project, we acknowledge that we are not the leader in the room in terms of operating navigation centers. So we're going to release an RFP, and that RFP will solicit specifically a professional operator that has the skill and expertise in overseeing a large facility like this navigation center, and also one who is either experienced in recuperative care or who will agree to work alongside a recuperative care operator, because not only is this interim housing, but it will have that medical respite / recuperative care component, so that as you have unhoused individuals who are coming out of hospitals and how do you recover, I have no place to stay, well, they'll be able to come to SB Hope campus for recuperative care.
Gotcha. And if Madam Chair, if I just one more question then, so is it fair to say then that contract for the operations of this navigation center would be an item that would ultimately go forward to the City Council for consideration and approval?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. I'm just a little confused. So what is SB Hope? They're obviously not going to maintain the building. They are.
So, yeah, we don't want to confuse that. There is SB Hope, which is the sheriff's team. They go out and they do outreach. And I know Hope, that word is translated a lot in homeless services. We actually have Hope the Mission, which is our outreach team. But specifically for our navigation center, SB HOPE refers to the San Bernardino, and HOPE stands for Homeless Outreach, Prevention and Education Campus. It's too much to say all of that, so we're just calling it SB HOPE Campus.
Sounds like they're just making sure it's
Two distinct agencies.
building it, not operating it, building it.
So SB HOPE is the name of the campus. It has nothing to do with any operator that has not been selected yet. It's just what we're calling this campus.
Okay, it was just confusion. I saw their name in there. And one more question on my part. The funding, what's the funding for this, sir?
For development or operations, what are you referring to?
Development.
So we had to layer this thing like a cake. There's multiple funding sources. We're using ARPA funds. We're using Home ARP funds. We're using PLHA funds. I don't know if you need me to break down these acronyms. We're using CDBG funds. We actually have some private donations coming in from local hospitals, HMO, because of that recuperative care portion of it. And we're also using county funds. We're finalizing negotiations regarding a significant amount of money from the county to help us with this.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion.
I'll second that motion to approve the resolution.
Happy to read it if I need to.
Is that motion for the whole of the consent calendar?
I did have a motion on the table prior to, so if that motion on the
Okay.
table still carries, then
Yeah,
I
it
would
does.
love to make a motion for the
Did
entire
it
consent
already
calendar.
get a second, Jennifer?
Yes.
For the consent
second
calendar?
it, yeah.
Second.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Commissioner Sherrick.
Okay, yeah. Chair, you could call for the vote if you like.
Yes, I'll call for the vote.
Okay. Chair Armstead? Commissioner Quill?
Yes.
Commissioner Daly?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
Yes.
Vote passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Hi, good evening. My name is Derek Alatorre.
Do we have to introduce? Mike. Yes.
Sorry about that.
Number 3, item number 3.
Hi, my name is Derek Alatorre. I'm Deputy Executive Officer for Legislative Public Affairs and Media at the South Coast Air Quality Management District. And Gilbert reached out to us to give a presentation on air pollution, where it starts, where it gets to, and how it affects people. So that's what I'm going to do right now.
Oh, great.
So I don't know where mine.
You're gonna go to the right.
This button?
Yeah. There you go.
There we go.
You're back up a bit.
Okay, first, just an overall overview of South Coast Air Quality Management District. We have jurisdiction in 4 counties, all of Orange County and most of Los Angeles, San Bernardino, and Riverside counties. We have about 17 million people in our jurisdiction, over 10 million square miles in that area. So we have a very large area. Sources of air pollution, there are many sources of air pollution, but the ones identified up there are, you got the area sources, you have stationary sources, you have mobile sources, and then you have the natural sources. And if you're wondering what natural sources are of air pollution, it would be like dust, dirt, that just naturally, if the wind blows, it gets put up in the air, and that is considered part of the pollution problem. The main sources of air pollution are what you have up there. The stationary sources make up about 20%. Mobile sources being trucks, trains, ships, aircraft, they make up about 80% of the problem. Right now, as we stand, I'm not sure if you read in the paper, but we are about to get a denial of our state implementation plan. That is a roadmap to how we're going to meet the federal standards that we're probably going to get that letter from EP in the next couple of weeks, and that affects this entire region, not just a certain part of the district, but the entire region. And there's going to be sanctions, could be sanctions along with those. We're trying to work out something with them. We're not sure if we're going to be successful, but we're still working on it. But the sanctions can be everything from transportation dollars being taken back by the federal government. There could be no drive days for trucks, for cars. It's a very draconian type of sanctions that the federal government can give. And you're probably wondering, well, how do we get to that point, right? The problem that we have is that, and I'll give it later on in the presentation, but we are responsible for stationary sources, meaning sources that do not move. Okay, we regulate those. The ones we do not regulate are the mobile sources. And as you see up there, 80% of the problem is coming from mobile sources, something we do not regulate. Trust me, if we can regulate the mobile sources, we'd clean up we wouldn't have a problem. It's up to the federal government and actually the state to also do their part. The main sources of the pollution are really not from this, it's really the federal sources, the interstate trucks, the ships, the trains, the airplanes. Those are not regulated by the state of California. Okay, so just a little background there on why we're not meeting the federal standards. So how does air pollution, and forgive me, my glasses are not that good and it's kind of bright up there so I can't see very well, but I know what I'm saying. So how does air pollution start? It really starts off at the ports. The ports have all these ships coming in, okay, and then you have stationary sources that are causing pollution, but the majority of the pollution is really coming from mobile sources. So what happens is the wind offshore pushes all that pollution up to the mountains. The mountains act as a barrier, and then it travels east, coming to the Inland Empire. Inland Empire has a significant problem. I'm sure you're aware of that. I don't need to say it. It is a significant problem. And unfortunately, what you're seeing is part of it is coming from sources that you have nothing to do with. And then there's also sources that are coming from within the Inland Empire. So, but the main problem is really the sources at the ports, and the goods movement is causing a majority of the problem right now. Types of pollution, there's greenhouse gases. You've heard plenty of those. Those are global criteria pollutants, and then the toxics at a local level. The reason why we're not in attainment for the federal standards is mainly for the ozone problem. So ozone is a reaction that is caused from volatile organic compounds, basically pollutants, and then the sun. And with those two, there's a chemical reaction that causes ozone. And with the ozone, there's good ozone up in the sky that protects us, but then there's bad ozone that's at the lower levels. And the ozone at the lower levels affect our lungs. And that's very harmful for our lungs. Hurts our lungs, causes health problems. And so we have to meet the standards. We're not meeting the standards, like I said earlier, but the problem is the federal government not doing their fair share. The regulatory framework on who's responsible for what, you see it up there. You got the federal government, you got the state, and then you have the local, such as South Coast AQMD. Federal government's responsible for their sources, the mobile sources. They also approve state plans for like a roadmap to clean air for the states and for the regions. And then you have the states that adopt rules, and then at the local level, we have to adopt them, either be as strict or stricter. The next, see the slide here. You'll see is the air pollution has actually improved over time. I'm going to just talk for myself. Back in the day when I was growing up, you couldn't see the mountains. Your lungs hurt. It was really horrible. Now it's still bad, but not as bad because we're controlling the pollution much more with our rules and regulations. You'll see there, the darker it is in 2012, that's the entire area where cancer-causing air toxics are the highest. The darker purple, the worse it is. That's in 2012. 2018, it's gotten less. It's gotten better. And then the our 2022 MATE study, multiple air toxics exposure study, showed that it's even gotten better since then. I didn't get a slide for that, but it is getting better, but the problem is still there. It's, you know, it depends on how you look at something. If it's, you see this is probably 3/4 full, well, you could say, well, that's good because it's 3/4 full, but you're missing a quarter of it. Kind of the same thing. It looks better, but there's still a major problem out there, still causing health problems as well as deaths. The challenges that we have here at South Coast, as I mentioned earlier, it's meaning the Federal Clean Air Act, especially for ozone and PM 2.5. You'll see sources there. You got the locomotives, you have the ships, you have the trucks, as well as the off-road equipment such as the bulldozers and all. Those are heavy emitters. Health impacts, you know, as it stands, the 2022 Clean Air Plan would provide an annual benefit of preventing 1,500 premature deaths a year, over 8,700 hospitalizations a year, and also prevent 163,000 work days from people being affected for either not going to school or not going to work. The monetized amount is about $19.4 billion. So solutions, and I think that's probably why I'm here, is what are the solutions? What can be done? Well, we need to do something quickly because of the federal standards we're not meeting, but there's incentives that we offer. There's also the availability of cleaner vehicles out there, trucks, trains, and I can't say ships so much, but definitely the trucks and trains. There is technology out there that are cleaner. Also, if we could deploy zero-emission vehicles, that's very important to helping clean up the air. But it's going to be everybody. What somebody said, it takes a village. Well, it's going to take a village of all businesses, from the private sector to the public sector to residents. We all got to do our fair share. Here's some examples of some vehicles that we have either funded, co-funded, or we did some research and development on. And I won't go into those, but there's a lot out there, stuff that could be used now. I would say one of the success stories is school buses. The school buses are required to be either near zero or zero, but in I think 2030 or 2035, they got to be zero, meaning electric or hydrogen. Right now, they're much cleaner than the diesel. The diesel buses are no longer allowed, so school districts are not using those. In summary, there's a lot of health impacts coming from air pollution that affect everybody, not only in the IE, but across our region. And again, all levels of government and private sector, public sector, and people need to help out with it. What I like to do is also talk to you about a program, what we call the indirect source rule for warehouses. I think, Gilbert, you wanted me to talk about that, and I have a few slides on that and how it works. I'm not the technical person that worked on it. I can give an overview of it. I have a general knowledge of it if you have any questions. But if you need more information, I could get it to Gilbert from the technical staff to answer those questions. So the WARE program, the WARE, we call WARE for short, is Rule 2305. Basically what it is we're asking warehouses to do their fair share of reducing emissions coming from trucks that are coming onto their property. All right. So what we did with that was we adopted it in 2021. It calls for the reduction of NOx and diesel particulate matter coming from the mobile sources associated with the warehouses. We assist in meeting the standards, the state and federal standards, and also with this we can improve health. It applies to approximately 3,400 warehouses in our region. And as warehouses are being phased into the WARE program based on their size, that's where we can work with them on a plan to reduce their emissions that are coming from the trucks that are visiting the site. All warehouses must be fully phased in by 2025. So how it works, so you have there's operator requirements. So basically, the program starts off with what we did was we did a survey of the owners of the warehouses and also the operators of the warehouses, because a lot of times those are two different sources or users. The owners could be a developer, and the actual users could be, as an example, ABC, warehousing, whatever it is, right? So we asked them to send us back the survey. Did they respond? Not really. We had to go out there and talk to them about it. Not surprising. Some of them didn't believe, there was a rule and a requirement for that. But we eventually went out there. So what the WARE program does is it gives options for the warehouses to reduce their emissions, and a couple of them is their mitigation fees. If they don't want to incentivize or require lower emission trucks going in, meaning zero emission trucks, then they pay a fee to us. They can come up with their own plan where they can offset those emissions that they're causing, solar panels up on the roofs or whatever it is. Okay, and then there's limited transfer and banking to meet compliance, so they just can't game the system. All right, reporting requires that their warehouses submit a report every year to us to let us know how many trucks have come in and also what they've done to reduce the emissions. So that's a requirement for all warehouses. So recent compliance activity, back in 2023, we did a compliant advisory sent out to 5,000 addresses, 800 in-person site visits were done as of February of this year. We issued notice of violations for not complying with the rule, and with that they had to come up with a way to get into compliance of the rule or pay us a fine for non-compliance. Our next steps are to continue the enforcement efforts and also continue providing compliance assistance to those facilities to help them come into compliance of the rule. And with that, if there's questions on the WARE program, we have an email address for WARE, we have a phone number for WARE, there's a web page for WARE, and also you could be added to the listserv to get any future reports that we have. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Yeah, just thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions. I think, first of all, appreciate the presentation. It's very informative. I think a question that I have, just in broad strokes, recognizing the valley that we live in, the bowl that we live in, and
you're right, I forgot to mention it. It is a bowl, because everything comes right here. It settles really in Jurupa, Fontana, all that area. So you're right, I forgot to mention that.
So we have a geographic challenge, as much as any of our other challenges. Is there, in just understanding the fact that we never make federal attainment standards, is there any scenario in which the entire basin, has the ability to actually start to meet federal attainment levels?
Go to zero emission. It's the only way. We can shut down every stationary polluter which we have authority over in the region. We will still not meet attainment. Mm-hmm. It's really the mobile sources that we have to get to. The federal government has to do their job, and they're not doing their job by making standards stricter. Okay, they're just not. And we understand California is unique, that Washington sees us as unique. We're our own, whatever you want to call it, right? A lot of other parts of the country don't have the same problem before. Mm-hmm. But now, because the standards are stricter, there's a lot more regions in the United States that are going to be in non-attainment. They just haven't. We've had a problem since '97 to meet those. They haven't. Those areas that are now becoming a problem didn't have that problem. Now they're getting to that because the standards got stricter over time. There's a '97 rule. There's a 2008 rule. There's a 2015 rule. They have a certain amount of time to meet those. So you're seeing more areas throughout the nation getting caught in this problem.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. And then I just have one other question, and then I'll stop talking. In your slides, one of your slides had a pretty interesting kind of graphic representation from 2012 to 2018. I think it was around cancer causing
Yes.
something or other. There you go. I mean, it's a pretty substantial, just looking at the colors and pictures, right? It's a pretty substantial decrease from 2012 to 2018. Was there policy? I mean,
Yes.
what took place in that 6-year period to get us that kind of level of reduction in these cancer-causing materials?
So stricter rules, number one. Advanced technology, more advanced technology. So as an example, diesel trucks, we started requiring them to have diesel traps to trap the diesel particulate matter. That helped out a little bit. But also the truck technology, there's different options to diesel. There's natural gas vehicles that, okay, granted they're still polluting, but they're 90% cleaner than the diesel trucks. So all those things, more technology for the stationary, for the mobile sources, along with, the rules that we implemented, that helped out significantly.
Right on. Thank you very much. I have other questions, but I'll stop talking for now.
I'm here as long as you need me.
I have a couple of comments, questions. Ivan Garcia, thank you. I'm very impressed by, the staff that we had SCE AQMD representative come out and present this to our city and our public speakers and some residents here, because I know we've heard a lot of comments about warehouses, pollutants. Really want to thank you guys for putting that together. I sincerely appreciate that. It's my first informative SEAQMD presentation. With that said, I wanted to ask, as far as pollutant sources for 80% of mobile sources, I guess in the near future, what are some alternates to help reduce that? Because it seems like that's the meat and potatoes of what's causing the pollution in our city or throughout California.
Short of regulatory authority, what we can do is just incentivize. ISR, the indirect source rules for warehouses, is one way. It's not going to address all the problems. It's going to address a portion of the problem, and not even a majority of the problem, a portion of the problem. Okay, that. Incentives, more dollars going to change out dirty engines, bring on more infrastructure for charging, whether it be hydrogen, whether it be EVs, electric vehicles. That kind of stuff will help out eventually. And I'm talking more on the not on the passenger vehicles, the light duties. I'm talking medium duty, heavy duty vehicles, because that's where the problem's at. Meaning the trucks and those kind of things are still polluting.
And then another question that I have is regarding warehouses, like in our city or just in California in general. How many of these warehouses are aware of this rule 2305?
So I will say that either the owners or the operators of the warehouses know about it. Are they paying attention to it? I think there's a problem with that. I think they're hoping we don't go out and enforce the rule. But as I mentioned earlier, in February, as of the end of February, we issued 200 notice of violations, and then they got to come into compliance with the rule. Meaning, the first step was to give us a report. What do you got? How much of your warehouse is actually being used to store goods, right? Because then obviously the truck's got to come in, unload it, and then also load it on, and another truck takes it somewhere else. Anything under, and I forgot to mention this, anything under 100,000 square feet does not fall under this rule. Anything over 100,000 is required for them to comply with the rule.
And then just my last question, I guess, how receptive were like these warehouses when they heard about this rule 2305, or what are some other items to help mitigate all the pollutants going out into the air?
Sure. So I will say, were they enthused about it? No, they weren't enthused about it, but obviously they had to comply. Some other tools, I believe you asked. What else do we have that we can do? to reduce pollution. There's a locomotive ISR that we're looking at right now. Okay, we're also looking at we don't want to call them ISRs. We want to call it we're trying not to use ISR because it scares people, right? We got sued, by the way, for the first ISR by the California Trucking Association, as well as I believe some developers, and I think the Teamsters sued us. We won in court, so we're good with that ISR, right? But moving forward, I think we're going to have those types of things. They're going to sue us and hold it up. But I think whatever we call it, whether it's an ISR, whether it's a memorandum of understanding, whatever that vehicle is, if we can come up with a solution that will help out, with our problems, whether it be, like I said, with the locomotives, whether it be with the ports, whatever you want to call it, that would be helpful in it. Ultimately, the federal government must step in and do something about their sources. And short of the federal government coming in and doing it, those are kind of patchwork things, but it's not going to solve the entire problem. The problem is the federal government needs to do their part. And hey, we
Two
can
more
only
questions.
do so much.
Sorry. If you can point to where the San Bernardino County is on the screen, I just wanted to get a better idea
Where's
where that
the,
is.
what's the pointer? Where's the pointer?
And for 2018, maybe, so we know
Which one is the pointer?
how well we're doing.
Is it not on there?
See where the upside down Y is? Where the roads are? Close to the left, underneath that square.
Okay.
Yeah.
For
So he's
2018,
got,
hopefully.
he's got the
So
point.
San Bernardino would be basically around this area here. You know, probably on the higher side, not on the lower side. That's probably Riverside. So where it's really dark, that's where the problem is. But that's 2012. If you look at 2018, it's not as dark. It's still a problem, but it's gotten better. And even, I don't have the 2022, and I wish I had put it in there before, but it's even better than that. But there's still a problem. Still
you.
a problem.
Thank you. And then just last question, does landscape, trees, plants help reduce pollutants in the air?
No.
All right,
What
thank
it'll
you.
do, it'll give you shade. It will absorb some things, but that's not the answer. The true answer is getting diesel off the roads and going to zero emission. That's where it's at. You know, it's minuscule. We could plant 1 million trees, not going to make a big difference. Plant 10 million trees, not going to make a big difference. So, okay.
Thank you so much. I just touching on the indirect source rule for a second. First of all, it's awesome.
For the warehouses, right?
For the warehouses, yes, sir. And we know AQMD, the rule of the law is AQMD, so we get that.
We're scary. People are scared of us, trust me.
They are, yes. No,
We're very
I'm
intimidating.
well
Although
aware.
I'm
Right.
not intimidating. I think it's just the organization is intimidating.
NAOP is intimidated. My question is with respect to, as it relates to city projects. So as projects are coming before being submitted to city staff and they're presented to us as a planning commission, how does the indirect source rule kind of fit into our consideration for approval of a project? In other words, are there standards or requirements that the indirect source rule promulgates that have to be incorporated into any potential city recommendation for approval of a project that might fall under the indirect source rule?
So I'm not an attorney, and I'm sure if we had an attorney from the Air District here, they would be able to answer that question. But what I believe is we don't. But whatever you build has to meet the Rule 2305's requirements. Now, we have guidance and for citing warehouses, but it's only guidance. It is not mandatory. It's just we give those to cities. Here's some guidance, and that's about it.
Okay, so maybe that's a question then better directed towards city staff and city attorney. How will those two things kind of intersect with each other, if that's an appropriate question?
It's something that we'd have to research. off the top of my head, there might be a way to tie as a condition of approval the entitlements for the warehouses that they have to comply with these rules from AQMD and make that a condition, and that failure to abide by the condition could be grounds to bring them back and revoke the entitlement. But I have to further research that to tell you that with some level of certainty.
Commissioner Daly, I was actually going to say that. In fact, I was going to ask Ms. Alatori whether or not you would recommend that going forward we start including conditions of approval tied to this particular rule for facilities, warehouses that are over 100,000 square feet. Have you seen other jurisdictions doing that from your experience?
So as I mentioned, I'm not the technical person. I have not personally heard of it. There may be some cities that have done it, but I would have to ask technical staff for that. And I would imagine there's probably going to be, if it's happening, mainly in the IE, because that's where all the building is going of the warehouses.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the IE. There's a lot of jobs to be had, and we appreciate that. We want to be pro-business, but we also want to be pro-environment. And we really believe that both can work together and provide not only good-paying jobs, but also a clean environment for everybody to live in. That's what this rule does. It gets to that point. But again, if the federal government needs to do their fair share.
Understood. Thank you. And thank you for that, staff. And I know this isn't the appropriate time to have that conversation, but to the extent that we can have that conversation at some point, I think that could make some good sense.
Absolutely. Commissioner Daly, I think in the case of the city of San Bernardino, since we seem to have one of the worst air qualities in the county, and even though we don't have as many warehouses as some other cities in the county do, I think it would be incumbent upon us to find a way where we can actually try to mitigate some of these impacts. And if it's, Albert is going to look into the legal authority for us to actually impose these kinds of conditions. And also, if AQMD is willing to enforce those conditions, that would be great. I didn't know they were monitoring warehouses, for example.
Oh, yeah, we're going out and making inspections.
I didn't know that. So it would be a good thing for us because we have the worst condition, even though we don't have the most number of warehouses in our community. So, yeah.
There's a lot of communities out there, to your point, Gilbert, that are being affected, and they don't have the source in their communities. So it's a good point. Any other questions? Okay.
A quick, short question. You said warehouses under 100,000 square feet are not affected. Is that the majority of the warehouses?
No.
I'm just asking.
No.
It's not. The majority
There's a
are
lot,
larger.
but it's not the majority.
Madam Chair, I have a couple comments. So it seems like there's a lot of incentives through the for this program. And I know we're mentioning warehouses. If you would just imagine it, the mobile pollutants obviously is the biggest problem. So whether they're traveling to a warehouse here in our city or a neighboring city, they're going to travel through our roads regardless. So has there been a study done to figure out how much are actually stopping, meaning monitoring the truck traffic and actually stopping? Because you don't build a warehouse in the city, they're going to travel through our city regardless. The pollutants are still going to be in the air. They're going to drive on the 210, the 15, the 10 right through us. What are we doing to monitor how many are actually stopping in our city if we're going to put some limitations and things like that on them versus just traveling through? And then what does the state do to try to push the envelope with the feds? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to stop. We got, I don't see diesel stopping. I don't see the train stopping. I don't see the boat stopping. The small stuff we can lower the emissions, but in the big scheme of things, I'm not sure what we're doing as a whole. If just limiting a warehouse here and there is gonna, how much impact are we really gonna make stopping building something like that here?
So with regards to identifying how many trucks are on the road, we don't do that. We do have monitors to monitor air pollution along some freeways. I know there's one for sure, maybe two here in the IE. But we don't count how many trucks are traveling are on the roads. That's not our jurisdiction. Your other question was, what was your other question? I'm sorry.
Basically asking what jurisdiction do you have over
Yeah, we don't have
monitoring and
yeah.
giving a report as far as what, because you're covering a lot of, it was 10 million square miles? Or,
10 million square miles.
that's a lot of miles. So just, we're talking about the city of San Bernardino here, and obviously we care about the neighboring cities as well, but just trying to figure out what effects limiting anything in our city will do as in the whole.
Yeah, I think your challenge is going to be, like you said, if they're not in your city, they're going to travel through your city. And that's a function of if a truck wants to get on the street, that's up to the city to determine what types of vehicles can be on certain streets. That's way out of our jurisdiction. So.
And thank you for your presentation too. It was a good presentation.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question before? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Oh, through the chair, I have one question. We talk about the federal government doing their part as far as the boats and trains coming in and things of this nature and the trucks. I know that California probably has the most restrictive AQMD laws in the country. However, do the trucks have terminals at the state line? Do they change tractors at the state line to drive a different tractor to pull a load into the state?
I'm not aware of any, but I know that there was a piece of legislation a few years ago by, actually, I think a San Bernardino state senator, I forget her name off the top of my head, but basically what it was going to do was at the borders of California on the main highways, they were going to have kind of like a smog check there, and the trucks that were coming in had to comply with state, but because there was a challenge, it's called a federal, it's kind of like a federal exemption. If there's interstate trucks, California can't do anything like that. We can look at state trucks that are registered here in California, that are coming back into California, as long as they're registered in California, then we could check them. But that bill never went anywhere. It died.
Madam Chair, I think what I would like the Planning Commission to do for us as staff is to encourage when we get these types of facilities that we ask for things that we think are going to benefit our community: electrification, solar panels, charging stations. I think if we start asking for those kinds of things as part of a regular warehouse project rather than saying we want to reject them, because our challenge is the air quality, whether we have warehouses in our town or not, is still going to be bad because, like Commissioner Garcia rightfully mentioned, you got a 215, you got a 210, you got a 10 freeway, and you got all these trucks going by. So I think where we need to be is we want to have zero tolerance in the projects that we approve. At least start encouraging electrification, try encouraging things that would actually help to reduce the impact rather than just saying no, because we say no, we rob ourselves of any kind of economic benefits we may get from that without actually reducing the impact of these trucks in our community. So,
if I could just add something, it's kind of scary what I'm going to say, but it's a fact. We have to be honest with ourselves. There's mandates by the state to go to zero emission. 2030, all trucks that are being bought, new trucks, have to be zero emission by 2030, and then 2035, it's got to be all zero emission trucks on the road. Okay. The challenge with that is the infrastructure. Infrastructure is going to be the challenge. They're not giving enough money for infrastructure to build what needs to happen. And that's going to be, listen, I'm in public affairs, legislative public affairs. I go to Sacramento, and the big thing up there is, we're going to switch over to zero emission in 2030, 2035. but everybody's telling them the infrastructure's not there. We need the funding to build this infrastructure, and it takes years. First of all, you all know, you're the Planning Commission, how long does it take to permit a site to build a substation? 4 or 5 years, I don't know what it is. And then you got to build it, you got to get the equipment. It's a process. And we are so far, in my opinion, so far behind the 8 ball that I don't think 2030 is realistic, to be honest with you. I think we're going to be challenged in that. There's got to be significant influx of finances for this, resources. So. Any other
Anybody else?
questions?
I would like to go forward with the suggestion you had. Do we have to make a motion on it?
No, Madam Chair, this is just a receive and file. But once these projects come before you, I want you to have that in your mind when we bring future projects, or we make it part of our regular policy when we review these kinds of projects, because we want to really take the initiative to clean the air that we have.
Can I just, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, is there, I know this isn't an action item, so we can't make a motion for anything. I guess the question is, what level of authority does the commission have to direct staff to impose these kinds of requirements? And is there any additional action that needs to be taken at a subsequent meeting to formally give this direction to staff, since we're acting on a non-public hearing item?
So to add additional conditions, the development code would have to be amended. Absent that, you're looking at voluntary compliance from developers on a case-by-case basis. You could say, we want these things. If they say no, and you don't have it in your code, then you can't enforce it upon them. But you can amend your development code to add it, and then you can force it upon them.
So thank you very much. What level of authority does this commission have to initiate modifications to said development code?
So the city council has to initiate that, and the first step would be for the commission to tell staff, this is what we want. We want you to go to the council and ask their permission to start that process. So then Gabriel would go to the council and say, at the last meeting, the commission would like, you heard a presentation from AQMD, they want to add a couple things to the development code. Would you approve, beginning that process? If they say yes, then staff can begin actually coming up with draft textual language to add to the development code. Then it would come to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission would vote as a recommending body to the City Council whether to approve or deny that language. Then it would go to the City Council for adoption. And if they adopt it, then it's added to the code. And then thereafter, for every warehouse project, whatever the code language is going to say, then it could be added as a condition of approval, and it would be enforceable.
Thank you. Is any additional direction required of staff at this point to carry this message forward to the council?
Yeah, we would need a kind of a straw vote of the commission to see if there's a majority to ask staff to do that.
Is that something we're in a position to do right now?
I would wait until we get to commission comments and do it at that time.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, I have a comment with regards to that issue. I'm a retired contractor, business owner, building owner here in San Bernardino. I can tell you right now, there is not a business owner out there that's not aware of AQMD and aware of the laws that are required for AQMD and aware of all the documentation that has to be presented to the AQMD. And there are a lot of companies that I know that have received fines for not complying to that. It is so difficult to get a permit through the City Hall as it is now. To add another layer or another obstacle for our planners or inspectors to deal with, I think it's totally out of line. I think the AQMD represents themselves well, and I think every business owner out there is well aware of what their requirements are. So with respect to tying it to a building permit process, I think it's just another layer of problems and more time involved. Thank you.
If I could just add to that, I agree with you to a certain extent.
Absolutely.
But there's also, whenever a business, let's say, comes into San Bernardino and they want to open up shop, right? They got to get a business permit. And cities should be using a permit checkoff list for the types of businesses that open up, and they got to check off, did I call the water district? Did I call Edison? Did I call AQMD to see if they need a permit? Which those are not very difficult to do. It's very simple. Just get and we issue, my department, my unit issues those we call them the sign-off letters. Basically, they do require one. They got to get one, or they don't need one. We just sign off on the requirement. Some cities are really good at doing that. Others are not as strict about it. So not aware of where San Bernardino lies on that spectrum, but there is a permit checkoff list, and I kind of agree with you that it's very difficult to get a permit in any other city.
Chair Armstead, I just want to clarify what I said earlier. What I'm going to recommend to the commission is that when we get to the Planning Commission comments, that at that time, I would recommend that if the commission wants to talk about it further and wants to direct staff to go to the council and ask for that permission, that you first agendize it for a future meeting. And then at that time, then you can fully discuss it and flesh it out, and then decide whether or not you want to give staff that direction.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Any more from the commission? I have one public comment on this item. Ms. Owens? Or Mr. Owens? Thank you. Sorry.
I'm a truck driver. Been driving for 27 years. And over the years, I have seen everybody complain about the semi trucks because they ruin the roads or whatever. The thing is, everything you see in this room that comes from a boat to a truck or from a train or an airplane, those are your four major things. If all four of those shut down for whatever reason, the economy of the United States will be in trouble. The thing is, I've seen these trucks change and change and change. But what people don't understand is it's just like this past year for winter, how many cars back east broke down because they were electric? People did not do the proper thing. They didn't hang up that cord properly. So what happens? If it's hanging there, the weather gets into it, it cannot be used because it's frozen, it's got water in it, it's frozen. Can't use it. Now, I've been kind of off and on over the years watching how they do these trucks automatically, driving by themselves with somebody in the truck in the passenger seat. The only problem is, you get a truck, you hire, say, a driver, but he doesn't sit behind the wheel. He's sitting over in the passenger seat while this truck's driving. The truck's going across North Dakota, Alaska, wherever, where there's heavy snow. Now the sensors get plugged up. Where's the truck? It shuts down right there in the middle of the road. And what happens, you, as the person in the truck, calls the dispatch, hey, the truck stopped, I'm in the middle of the freeway. That dispatcher's going to tell you one thing, get out and go wipe the things off. Me, if it's blowing snow, I ain't going to get out there. I'm not paid to be a mechanic. They don't pay enough. Years ago, the Senate on TV was talking after it was over. A senator, she got, in a way, caught with another senator, and he asked her, what do you think about these trucks driving automatics with no driver? She said some bad words, and I agreed with her. BS. But the thing is, like he was saying, by 2030, 2038, California wants all these trucks being automatic. Well, you get a truck that's going to run from, say, Arizona out here, and all of a sudden, there's no place for him to charge his truck. What's going to happen?
Thank you, sir.
There's no place for trucks to be. And here in California, they're the strictest ones. Yes, the emissions are bad on some trucks, but with me driving up from Northern California clear down here, I have seen cars that should be off the road.
Thank you, sir.
because
Your
of that.
3 minutes are up, sir. Thank you. We appreciate your comment, but the 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll be happy to come back again. I can bring back the WARE staff out here to give a more in-depth conversation about the WARE program, the Rule 2305. Gilbert can just reach out to us and ask, okay? Thank you.
And you said now, during this time, we can request this to be agendized for a future meeting?
I recommend waiting till at the end of the agenda for Planning Commission comments.
Commissioner comments. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Commissioner comments.
That's at the end of the agenda, Chairwoman. Yes.
Okay, public hearing items. The Planning Commission will first hear a report from staff, and then the public hearing will be opened. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak. Next, members of the public will be allowed to speak. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak must be sworn in and fill out a request to speak form. The forms are located at the table near the door. When your name is called, come forward and speak your name into the microphone. Say and spell your name for the taped record. After all have spoken, the applicant will be allowed to respond. Public hearing will then be closed and the Planning Commission will begin deliberations to make a decision. All decisions except general plan amendments and municipal code amendments are final actions unless an appeal is filed and fees paid within 15 days to the Community and Economic Development Department. If you challenge the resulting action of the Planning Commission in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this agenda or in written correspondence delivered to the Community Development and Housing Department at or before the public hearing. We will now begin with item number 4.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. I'm Chantel Choice, the Associate Planner. I'm here to present item number 4, Conditional Use Permit 23-19. Conditional Use Permit 23-19 is a request to allow the development and establishment of a new wireless telecommunication facility consisting of a 70-foot monopine tower and ground-mounted equipment enclosure. The tower will be located at 2906 Northeast Street within the residential suburban zone. Here we have our location map. It's within our residential suburban zone. It'll be located on an existing developed site, and it is surrounded by also residential suburban to the south, east, and west, with the 210 located to the north. Here we have an aerial map. As previously stated, it will be located on an existing developed site. The site is developed with a religious facility, and we have residential single-family homes surrounding the area. AT&T radio frequency engineers identified this site because it had a significant gap in the coverage in the surrounding community. The hours of operation, it will be unmanned, so there will be no traffic coming back and forth to the site. There will be, when there is time to access the unmanned telecommunication wireless facility, they will have ingress and egress access from 2 existing driveways located along West 29th Street and Northeast Street. Here we have a view of the site from West 29th Street, and the facility will be located at the rear. Here we have a view from Northeast Street. The telecommunication facility will be located at the rear of the property. Here we have the existing church. We have the parking lot area, and the wireless facility will be right behind the religious facility. It will be a monopine, which will blend in with the surrounding natural elements. There will be other trees surrounding that will be the same height as the monopine, so it will really blend in with the surrounding area. Here we have other elevations. We have the ground-mounted equipment will be located within a 8-foot high CMU enclosure, which will be the color and the material will match the existing building, so it will blend in. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopts Resolution Number 2024-017, finding the project categorically exempt pursuant to Section 15303, new constructions or conversions of small structures in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, approving conditional use permit 23-19 based on the findings of fact, CEQA determination, and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. And that concludes staff presentation. The applicant is here if you have any additional questions.
We will now open up for public hearing, and I do have one speaker. John Silverman.
Chairperson.
Hold on.
I would first ask if the applicant has any comments before going to public comments. Oh, the applicant came up? Okay. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question. What is the possibility of undergrounding that utility box?
The equipment area?
Yeah.
In some cases, we can do that. Oh, I'm sorry. In some cases, we can do that. In this situation, because we are requesting a compact diesel generator, just to be used in times of emergencies, it will be surrounded by a CMU block wall to block out the noise of the surrounding areas. Those generators, I think with modern technology, there might be a way to get around doing it underground, but typically our engineers find that that's just not a safe option. And so what that means is there will be no backup operation power. And so we usually do not propose it unless it's specifically required by the code. Because A, it's significantly more expensive, but more importantly, it also, depending on the ground, can provide problems. For example, in this situation, the only underground aspects of this project would be the anchorage, of course, along with a significant foundation where the tree is itself, because it is a 70-foot pole. So I think the anchorage goes down, and don't take me for 100% here, until I get the building drawings, I don't know if 100, but I believe it goes down about 15 to 20 feet. And we'll do soil testing stuff to make sure. But the more things that go underground, the more problems in which we run into tripping over water lines or existing power lines, etc. So we don't usually go with that as our outright recommendation unless it specifically, fits the design. In this situation, because it's hidden from public sight for the most part behind the church building, and in fact the equipment area is the furthest away from either the public streets, and it's surrounded by a CMU block wall that we will paint and surface to make sure it looks just like the existing structure. We didn't propose it here. But.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner on this one? No? Any other commissioners?
I just have a comment or a question. Looks like it's replacing parking stalls. Is that where the site is?
No, there's no current parking stalls right there. If you look at the drawings, it's up on the screen right there where Chantel is showing us. That tree right there is a space right up against the building, and it's kind of adjacent to the access portion to get to the back layer of the parking lot. So we were specifically, the church does not want to lose any parking. Is the point. So we designed it so that it would not reduce any parking.
Do you have a picture of the site plan aerial view?
The site plan? Yeah.
So this will be the aerial view right here. So the enclosure will be right over here. There's access right along cars will be able to come in and will not, the enclosure will not hinder them to be able to park. The parking area is right along here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner?
I had a question. So you guys are the applicant, and
That's right.
And I guess this scope of work was proposed by AT&T, right? And they got permission from the church to install this telecommunication tower?
That's right. We will have a leasing agreement with the church specifically that is still being negotiated, but it is all the business terms are agreed upon. We just need to get to the point where we're executed. But those business terms are already decided. The church is very happy to have us there. AT&T is the originator of the application, but they hire SmartLink, which is who I work for, to handle the planning and permitting processing and also to handle the leasing negotiations as well.
And obviously AT&T and the owner are all in agreement. They're in agreement with the project, obviously. That's why it's before us here.
Oh, yes. We went through all that process first. We first went and I visited the church myself and discussed it with some of the staff. And then we went on an official visit with some of our design and our engineers and discussed what we were proposed. And the church staff came back to us and approved along with the business terms. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm for the project. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners?
Through the chair, I do have one question.
Of course.
How do you determine the height of the tower?
So I'm not the radio frequency engineer, so please bear with my fairly layman's terms discussion of it. But they use mathematics to decide how high the tower needs to be depending on the angle of the antennas.
Okay.
And depending on the significant gap in coverage. So in some situations, not here, in some situations the gap in coverage is not as significant, so we don't have to cover as significant a section of the surrounding community in terms of there is some signal in this area. We're not going to pretend like there's none. The problem is that the signal within structures and within vehicles is pretty weak, and so the height the higher it is, the further it can broadcast. Is the layman explanation for it. But the RF engineers established that from AT&T's side.
I will have to agree, that is an area that loses.
It does, yeah. Unfortunately.
I always thought it was because the freeway was lower right there.
That can have an effect.
Could have, yes. Do you also build the towers with the idea of leasing out space to other transmitting carriers?
So we always allow for that possibility. Typically, co-location, which is what we would call it, if T-Mobile or Verizon or whoever wanted to do that, then they would have to go through their own process. They would have to go through planning and building inspections as well. But they would have to agree with AT&T about terms and then the building of it. But we always allow for space. We never try and build a tower where the only room for the space is AT&T's antennas, just from a business perspective, but also because cities really do prefer that we make that option available to other providers who might see that AT&T has a tower in the area and would come to us to lease space.
One more, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. Oh, let's get to them.
We will take public comment now. I have a John Silverman.
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah, sorry. I was
Okay,
just
I'm
trying to
sorry.
make sure.
Then I have a Martha De La Rosa. Please come up.
I'll just make myself available to answer any questions afterwards.
Yo no estoy de acuerdo con la torre. Yo no estoy de acuerdo con la torre porque podría traer más indigentes a esa área y ahorita es segura para ese lado. También la radiación.
I do not agree with the tower because it could bring more homeless people to that area, and also the radiation.
Sería malo para la salud, ya sea para nosotros, para los niños y todo alrededor de esa localización.
That would be bad for the health, for the families, for the kids, and all for that people in that location.
Al igual que usualmente perdemos la luz, se va la luz seguido. Simplemente ayer se fue 2 veces la luz, entonces no sé si al poner esa torre sea un problema por la luz.
Okay, and also we have frequent blackouts. The power did go away twice, and I don't know if once that tower is installed, it's gonna cause the same issue.
Sería todo.
That would be it.
Would you like to respond, sir?
Hi, so I'll just address the 3 complaints. I'm not really sure how to respond to the more homeless. I don't know the enclosure area, which could potentially provide shelter for a transient individual, will have a security lid, which is, I believe, chain link, and if not, it could be wrought iron. I can't remember. No, it's wrought iron. Excuse me. And so no one would be able to climb over the CMU wall to reside within. Other than that, I'm not really sure what to respond in terms of more homeless being drawn to wireless. But health issues, I will address. This does come up fairly often. The reason that these aren't really in the purview of the City Planning Commission for the most part, and the city attorney could probably back me up on this, is that the FCC is the one that evaluates the wireless in terms of what levels of radiation, specifically radio frequency. Don't let that word confuse you. It's just radio waves. And once the standards are met that are established by the FCC as to what is safe or what is not, that's a federal standard level, and it is evaluated for every single wireless antenna facility, meaning that before we ever go on air, before we ever turn the power on, the FCC has to evaluate our standards, specifically about, and it's reports driven up by RF engineers, typically outside contractors who are not in the interest of AT&T. They're just there to make a report, and that report states to the FCC whether or not we meet the requirements, and that's a required level of federal compliance for all wireless facilities. And so once we meet that, the FCC states that we are safe to operate. In terms of frequent blackouts, I don't know about the power structure here because we have not done our power application yet. That's we do that during the building process. I will say that the power draw will be evaluated by SCE and whether or not this system can handle it, and we will meet their requirements so that it fits into their overall system requirements. And anything they request, we obviously will meet, because if we don't get the power, we don't get to operate. So,
Thank you for that clarification.
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission nor the city can consider radio frequency generation as a reason to not approve a wireless telecommunications facility. So, and he's quite right about that. There are rules and regulations from the FCC that basically excludes radio frequency consideration when dealing with this. We can regulate other things regarding the facility itself, but we can't use radio frequency and the health impacts as a reason to not allow it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wait. We are now, I'm sorry. Let's see, we will, do we have any more public comments? No? Now,
thank you.
I'll call for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to the Planning Commission to adopt Resolution 2024-017, approving conditional use permit 23-19. Item 4.
Second.
Okay, now we will call for a vote.
Chair Armstead?
Yes.
Vice Chair Quill?
Yes.
Commissioner Daly?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
Yes.
Vote passes unanimously.
Okay, now we will go to item 5. Item 5. Need a staff presentation on item 5.
Good evening. I'm Chantel Choice, Associate Planner. I'm here to present item number 5, Development Permit Type P 22-05. Development Permit Type P 22-05 is the request to allow the development and establishment of a truck and trailer parking facility located on the southeast corner of West Rialto Avenue and South Rancho Avenue within the industrial light zone. Here we have our zoning map. The project site is located within an industrial light zone. We have industrial light located to the north, the east, the west of the project site. We have our commercial heavy that's located right adjacent from the project site. Industrial light zones allow for truck and trailer parking as well as other light industrial uses. Commercial heavy also allows for some light industrial uses as well. We have our residential urban, which is located to the south of the project site, which is developed with single-family residential homes. We also have residential urban that's located to the west of the project site, which is developed with mobile home residents. Here we have an aerial view. The project site is vacant. There are industrial uses that are surrounding the project because it is industrial. It is mainly industrial right along the north and the east and west of the project site. We have right at the corner, there will be a gas station that has been approved that is currently in the process of being developed. We have across Rancho, we have it's a rental facility for traffic equipment, and we have right adjacent from the project site, we have a liquor store. Right along the south side of the project site, we have single-family residential homes. So the development and establishment of a new truck and trailer parking facility and a security office consisting of a 260 square feet security office on a project site containing a total of 2.90 acres. The hours of operation will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. There will be 3 to 5 security guards that will be hired for this site. There will be ingress and egress access from one 48-foot wide driveway located along West Rialto Avenue. There will be 53 parking stalls for the trucks, 1 standard parking stall, and 1 accessible parking stall. Here we have, this is what it looks like from West Rialto Avenue. You see the site is vacant. Here we have a view from South Rancho Avenue. You'll see the homes that are located to the south. The site does sit above the homes, and there is an existing block wall, 6-foot high block wall that will remain. As previously mentioned, the site will have ingress and egress access will have ingress and egress access from West Rialto Avenue. There will be standard and accessible parking stalls right along the front. Here we have, that's where the security guard shack will be, 260 square feet. So they will be located right along West Rialto Avenue to be able to help with access for the trucks to come in and out. The parking lot stalls for the trucks are set back from the property lines. Along the south side, they will be set back 17.5 feet from the property line. Over here, we'll have about approximately 32 feet from the property. So the parking stalls will not be right up against the property line. There will have a setback area, which will be landscaped. Here we have our landscaping plans. There will be various trees and plants planted throughout the property. We'll have trees. It was required normally for a industrial project. We require a 10-foot wide landscape buffer. Here they will be providing a 17.5-foot wide landscape buffer just to provide that additional buffer along the south side to help lower impact along this single-family residential homes that are abutting them. There will be a gap in between the trees and the existing block wall so that when foliage from the trees fall, it will not fall on the abutting properties. We did require a type A screening, which is tall trees. So the trees that are along the south side are supposed to be approximately 20 to 40 feet high to provide that additional screening. There will be trees that's planted throughout the site that will also be approximately 20 to 40 feet high as well. There was, in addition to the landscape shielding, we did require that the lighting on the properties shall be shielded and from the abutting properties, so no light will shine onto the single-family homes. We also asked for there will be a 6-foot high block wall along here. That is a part of that type A screening. They are providing a 6-foot high wrought iron wall, wrought iron fencing along Rancho. Along here, we will have a 6-foot high block wall and 6-foot wrought iron along West Rialto Avenue. There was also environmental studies done for this project that came back. It took into consideration noise, traffic, and air pollution, which came back as low impact. Here we have an elevation of what the guard shack would look like. The staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2024-012, finding the project categorically exempt pursuant to section 15332 infill development projects in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, and approving development permit type P 22-05 based on the findings of fact, sequel determination, and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. The applicant is here. They will like to do a presentation of their own.
Chairperson, would you like to open the public hearing?
Oh, thank you. I will now open this up to public hearing, and the applicant is going to give us a presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Sarah Otzbaha, and I'm a Land Use and Real Estate Associate with Somos Law Group here on behalf of the applicant. I'm joined by my friend and colleague, James Castaneda, who's the Senior Land Use Planner with our firm. We have a few brief remarks related to the project overview, regulatory conformance, design considerations, outreach, and also the conditions of approval. I'm going to hand it to James to briefly cover the project overview, conformance, and design portions of our presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having us today. As staff outlined in the agenda, the proposed project is a 53-space truck and trailer parking facility located on a 3-acre vacant site in southeast corner of Rialto Avenue and Rancho Avenue. The facility will be utilized as a storage facility for truck and truck trailers where no offloading or sorting of materials, products, or cargo from the parked trucks will occur. As such, that helps to minimize disturbance and noise levels and keeping those minimal. As part of our due diligence in developing the project, we evaluated the applicable land uses, regulations for consistency. The industrial light zoning designation allows for the proposed use on the site. And the general plan, both current and the forthcoming 2050, do contemplate the use as well. For the design consideration, as staff has outlined, we are including landscaping that'll cover approximately 28% of the subject site. Vegetation has been selected in part to provide drought-tolerant landscaping around the perimeter, upwards of 91 trees. Along the southern and eastern perimeter, it's a mix of Afghan pines and desert willows that were selected for their visual screening capabilities. Again, as staff has outlined, those will anticipate reaching anywhere from 20 to 40 feet height with that. And so, yeah, that's, again, added to for the landscaping buffer as best as possible. Again, as staff also has indicated, we do have a guard shack up in front. In addition to that, there'll be 24-hour surveillance. And per conditions 4 and 28G and H.
Excuse me. Over here. Could you speak up a little bit louder? You're speaking to yourself, I think.
Oh, no.
And not to us.
I'm sorry. So, again, with the design considerations, the site will have 24-hour surveillance in addition to the guard shack. With the conditions that are included in the resolution, which is condition 4, 28G and H, that discuss lighting regulations, not to exceed 1-foot candle illumination, but also complying with the shielding requirement to minimize light pollution outside the subject site. So I'll hand it back to Sarah to cover the outreach and close us out.
Thank you, James. Our clients are dedicated to being good neighbors. We stand here before you as the product of 2 years of hard work with the city to bring this project to fruition and to make sure that the final project as designed is responsive to questions raised by neighbors and businesses and staff members. And as demonstrative of that effort and dedication to our clients' ethos as a good corporate citizen, they retained a outreach consultant called Zunu Enterprises to reach out to residents, including outside of the city's zoning radius, to ensure that there was as many opportunities as possible for folks to receive public information about the project, to ask questions so we could be responsive to them. The Zunu team reached out to folks on 4 separate days, on March 21st and 22nd, and again on May 5th and May 6th. They were able to make contact with about 74 different businesses, neighbors, and residents, including outside of that noticing radius required by the city. They were able to make contact with 51 individuals, and based on that contact, 47 were willing to sign a petition in support of the project. That's 92% in support of this project. And before we close, we would like to respectfully address the conditions of approval that were raised by staff. The first relating to the guard shack. As of the agenda circulated on Friday, those are new conditions that were not part of Friday's staff application packet. And as the applicant is evaluating their needs for the site, it is a small guard shack, and their needs for surveillance, it is 24 hours. They haven't solidified the research needed to justify how many guards would be on site and the hours they would be on site. The second condition of approval was also not included in Friday's packet. That relates to the hours of operation. As drafted, it's restricted from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're respectfully requesting that the city consider the conditions they've imposed on similar facilities here in the city of San Bernardino. For example, there's a site at 157 North Rancho, referred to as the Brickyard facility, that had the same condition on operations of approval introduced in Friday's packet. We're requesting staff consider that condition as an alternative. To clarify on the hours of operation issue, most of the truck trailer in and out of the facility would occur during that 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. period, with peak times within that period. Usually there's a peak in the morning and in the evening, as demonstrated by the initial study and supplementing staff report. Very minimal activity would occur after that 7 p.m. window, but it is crucial to the applicant's operations to allow in and outs, including, for example, for the guards. So we are requesting that the hours of operation be extended with more flexibility for a condition consistent with other similar sites within the city of San Bernardino. And also, this condition is consistent with the city's noise ordinance in section 8.54.050 of the San Bernardino Municipal Code. The clients have demonstrated that we're very willing to work with the city to promptly and diligently address any additional concerns about noise complaints, about lighting, about vegetation. So in the event that anything were to occur during off hours, it is under 24-hour supervision, and there is someone who would be responsive to that. And with that, we wanted to thank the commissioners and thank staff for their review and consideration of our project, and we're available to answer any questions.
Any questions from the commissioners? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question for staff. So this is being presented to us with a categorical exemption from CEQA. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, as infill, because it is, it did meet the requirements for infill exemption as far as it was low impact for noise, air quality, and also it's less than 5,000 acres. Less than 5 acres.
Okay. Okay. So does that mean then the traffic impacts associated with the 56 stalls and the trucks going in and out of that, I mean, I understand that it's exempt. So No
Yeah.
traffic studies were required or anything?
No, so the traffic engineer did look at it, and they did approve the traffic scoping form and did not require a traffic impact analysis for this.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question with regards to the amendments that you're requesting. So those conditions were just provided to you on Friday?
They weren't provided on Friday. They were provided between Friday and today, but we became aware of them today.
And I'm sorry, what condition numbers are those?
Condition 5 in the resolution relating to the hours of operation, and I'll defer to Chantel about the guard shack.
I could speak on that. There were some amendments.
I'm sorry, before you do, what page in the packet is that?
That will be. It will be on the resolution, which is I don't have the full packet, but
Okay.
I have the resolution itself.
74.
And it will
Thank
be
you.
okay. Yeah. So it'll be under. It'll be page 6 of the resolution, but as was mentioned, 74 of the packet. So there were some additional corrections that needed to be made. It was condition number 3. There was the type of plants that will be provided that was listed for condition number 3. Also, condition number 5, we added in the hours of operation, which is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week, and that is based off of the justification letter that was provided to us by the applicant.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Sherrick, if I just may make a comment on that. If you look at the original conditions, condition number 3 kind of specifically talked about the landscaping buffer, but didn't really call out specific landscaping species. So we basically added specific species to that condition. As far as condition number 5 is concerned, yes. The condition reads that the hours of operation shall be mindful, kind of on quote unquote, of the adjacent residential use. But in the application material, I think the applicants had indicated that it would be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we just transferred those hours. Yeah, just be mindful of the residential properties to the south.
Any other commissioners? Go ahead.
You stated the hours of operation were from 7 to 7. And it says in the analysis that to further impact for the residents that they would consider or recommended conditions for changing the hours of operation or the lighting. Is that so?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is, will they consider more than just, if the hours of operation from 7 to 7 and the residents are complaining, are they willing to make it from 7 to 5 or whatever, and to reduce the lighting for the site?
So we did talk about the lighting, and they are, we did talk about how it will be shielded from the adjacent residential properties. So we did, that was something that we talked about. As far as the hours of operation, this is something that was just brought to staff attention regarding not agreeing with that.
Would
So
they
that's
be
something
willing
that
to consider changing the hours of operation?
That
Is
would
it-
be something we will need to ask the applicant.
Would you be willing to change the hours of operation and reduce the lighting for the site?
We'd be willing to shield the lighting, Commissioner, and I do have a compromise is maybe anything above a certain decibel after a certain hour, if there are complaints and if it's registering above that decibel, so that it is a not an objective standard, right? So for protection of the residents in the residential area.
And from the looks of it, from the aerial side, if you can back it up, not that one, but no. It's surrounded by businesses in 3 parts. Yes. It's surrounded in 3 areas for businesses, except over here, which resident. And there's that patch in between. It seems like it would cross, you'd have to cross the light, so it's not right next door, the residence.
No, so the mobile home park isn't right against the proposed. We have the single family residential that's to the south. But there is a business right here with the traffic equipment rental business, and that's within, that would be our industrial light zone.
Okay.
Anyone else on commissioners? Any other commissioners? No other commissioners?
So in regards to, condition approval number 5, from what I understand from the applicant or the applicant's representative, it looks like you want to extend the late hour. That's what I understood.
Yes, please. So it's consistent with the industry standard and also with this other facility I mentioned, the Brickyard facility. It is a 24-hour facility, but the peak times are limited from 7 to 7. So what we could do if there are concerns later on down the road as part of this condition under the original language proposed is implement a decibel level, limit the types of loading and unloading, for example, James mentioned is not going to be occurring on the site anyway, and those are the things that are in the San Bernardino City's noise ordinance that are the triggers for further regulation. So we could address those pieces as they come, and we're more than willing to address them.
Can staff verify the Brickyard hours of operation or Brickyard site?
I'm not sure what the Brickyard hours are. I wasn't the planner associated with that, and the planner isn't here, so unfortunately, I won't be able to answer that question.
I'd be happy to forward the staff report. I believe it was from November of 2023, Chantel. I'll send it as soon as we wrap.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I'm sorry, Casey. Following up on that, your justification letter asked for 7 to 7.
I believe you, Commissioner. I believe that application was filed over 2 years ago, so our project has evolved a bit since then.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that was the nature of my question. So what's changed from April of 22 to June of 24 to necessitate a change in operation hours?
I'm glad you asked. So the project has evolved actually quite a bit because of the duration of engagement we've had. We've been soliciting feedback from the city, including staff, members of the community, to try to make sure that we're good neighbors and making sure that the site operations are functional. Also, at the time of application, we hadn't completed the market studies yet.
So just to be clear, because I'm not very smart. So what I'm looking in front of us says hours of operation 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days a week. Am I hearing from you that you would like that to be modified?
Yes, please.
To what?
24-hour facility, please, which is consistent with other facilities here in San Bernardino.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Commissioners? None. I will now open it up for public comment. I do need a translator. The first one is Teresa Balasar.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Teresa Balcázar, yo soy organizadora comunitaria.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Barcaza. I'm a community organizer.
Con respecto con lo que dijo ahorita la señorita, dice luz, seguridad. Eso es para su empresa, para su establecimiento. Pero ¿qué hay para la comunidad?
Okay, what she just mentioned about lighting, illumination, security, that's for her business, but what about for the community?
Y unas bonitas plantas.
And some pretty plants.
51 peticiones de sus vecinos. Tenemos 4 parques de mobile home que están alrededor, que afecta tráfico, que afecta smog.
Okay, in 51 petitions from his neighbors, we have 4 mobile home parks which affect traffic and affect pollution.
¿Qué vecinos dicen que son buenos vecinos? Porque en ningún inquilino de los mobile home se han parado para saber qué necesidades tienen o cómo les van a afectar en sus viviendas.
Okay, they mention good neighbors, but they haven't stopped by to speak to these neighbors from the mobile homes to ask them how all this is going to affect their neighborhood.
Su horario, dicen, son de 7 a 7. Los niños entran a la escuela, el tráfico está tremendo. Yo no sé en qué película vio eso, ella que dice que no hay tráfico y que no va a afectar.
Okay, kids go to school at 7 a.m. and they operate 7 to 7. I don't know in which movie she saw that traffic will not affect. I don't know where she get that from, like it won't affect. Traffic is tremendous.
La invito a que vaya a las mobile home y conozca realmente las necesidades y cómo les va a afectar y el impacto que va a tener.
I invite her to go to the mobile homes and to understand the impact it will have, how it will affect the mobile homes, and ask them about their needs.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker also needs an interpreter. Jose Sanchez.
Good evening. Mi nombre es José Sánchez.
Good evening. My name is José Sánchez.
Es la tercera vez que vengo por el mismo motivo.
This is the third time I'm here for the same reason.
Disculpen, con todo respeto, no sé si ustedes han manejado o pasado por el área que se menciona.
Excuse me, with due respect, I do not know if you have driven along this area that has been mentioned today.
Y miren, con todo respeto, no pretendo burlarme.
And with due respect, my intention is not to mock you.
Pero tengo 31 años viviendo allí y ese mapa es como del año 80. No es actual.
But I have been living there for 31 years approximately, and that map is totally outdated. It's from the 80s.
Y dicen que no va a afectar el tráfico.
They say that this is not going to affect traffic.
Pero por lo menos hay 4 estacionamientos de semi-trucks.
But there are at least 4 parking sites for semis.
Sin incluir todo lo que viene del Santa Fe, de que descarga el Santa Fe.
Not including everything that comes in, or the vehicles, the loading and cargo vehicles from Santa Fe.
Y pues yo paso todos los días por allí y va a ser peligroso el horario que tienen porque es un lugar residencial.
I am a passenger and a driver along that area. It's a dangerous area along that hour because of the time, the hour.
Hay muchas escuelas alrededor de allí.
There are many schools around that area.
Y con todo respeto, yo no sé a quién entrevistaron las personas que estaban de acuerdo en que hagan ese parking lot.
With all due respect, I do not know who are the people that have been interviewed to accept and approve this parking lot in this area.
Y sí se ve muy bonito cómo lo pintan, pero Los otros estacionamientos
It does look very beautiful and pretty the way it is presented. However, other parking lots,
están, toda esa calle está horrible.
all that street is horrendous.
No sé si sea la ciudad que se encargue de limpiar los árboles,
I do not know if the city is in charge of cleaning out the trees,
pero la verdad es deprimente. San verdad, esa área era muy bonita. Tiene tiempo que la han descuidado completamente.
It's very depressing to say that that area was extremely beautiful and now it has been totally devastated.
Y para terminar, no creo que necesitemos otro estacionamiento de trailers allí, de containers, porque
I really believe that we do not need another trailer parking lot there because
estamos saturados de camiones grandes y es muy pesado el tráfico y peligroso. Muchas gracias.
we are overwhelmed by heavy traffic, by heavy trucks. The traffic is extremely heavy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jerry Owens.
I live up on the hill because Rialto and Rancho at that intersection, as you're going west on Rialto, it goes up a hill. The mobile home park on both sides are up on a hill. This picture is a perfect picture. My question is, there's a trucking company off to the right of this picture. Is that the same company that wants to take that yard? Can you answer that? Yes or no?
This public comment, sir, so you can make your comment.
So you guys can sit here and talk about it, but you can't answer my questions. That's wrong. I should be able to get an answer for
Sir,
that.
we will ask the developer to respond, but right now we're just listening to public comments.
Okay?
Thank you.
That's number one question.
Okay.
And if it is, what kind of foundation are they going to put down? Because what I heard, they want to leave it as dirt. And that's wrong. Cannot be dirt. It needs to be cement for the trailers to be parked on if they're going to unhook them. And a pavement would be fine. But if you put all pavement in there, and you have a bunch of loaded trailers in there, the trailer's going to break the asphalt because it's hot. They sink. So plenty of places that I've been to over the years, pavement, and then a strip maybe wide as this for the trailers to sit on. And that way it's safe, or make them put all cement in. That's all I got to say. And I'd like to have answers from whoever before I leave.
Thank you, sir. Next is Ricky Payne.
Hello. Good evening, all of you. My name is Ricky Paquet, not Payne. I'm 18. I live right up there on the hill to the left, facing where the truck stop is going to be built. And there's already truck stops or truck parking areas around that area, right beneath project site. There's already trucks right there, loaded. Above it to the left, there's already trucks loaded. Right next to a mechanic shop, I go there. And there's already a factory being that's always like on the run right above it as well. And I understand that they said there was an environmental data thing that they did. And I'm assuming that they probably didn't put in fact everything else adding up to it, to what the environmental issues would have caused. And, sorry. And also, that, like how Teresa brought up, and the first person who came up here, they said the peak hours would be 7 a.m. That's when elementary and middle schoolers go in. I know because my brother, that's the time he goes in, and he takes the bus, like a lot of kids do. Even I did. And if that's when it's going to be the most active, that's just dangerous. That's what I think. And also, I've heard complaints about people who live closer to the street. They feel their houses shake from the 18-wheelers that drive by. And it's not, and that's crazy because it's not even built yet, and there's already a bunch of 18-wheelers driving around that area. And then I want to speak about the houses, even though I don't live near there. They say there's a 6-foot wall. That's not that much. I'm 5'10". I could probably look over that. And they want to plant trees. Trees on, I don't remember the exact number they said, 40 feet, I think. That takes like decades to grow. The light is not going to, they're not going to shield the light in any way unless they have like some crazy fertilizer. And I'm sorry. And I also heard the real estate agents just want to get paid. They don't care about the people. And I would want to know which people they interviewed, because from the people I've talked to, they don't want it there. They initially thought that the whole area was going to be just a part of the gas station, from what I heard from some people. And there's already a gas station that's going to be built. Imagine the environmental issues that's going to raise, the more air pollution that's going to happen with the gas station. That's already going to bring cars. And like from the person that was here earlier about the environmental issues, he brought up 80% of it being cars and trucks. We don't need more of that. I doubt anybody would want a truck stopped by their house or feeling their house being shaken every time a truck drives by. And especially because the mobile homes are older, sorry. Thank you.
Okay. James Castaneda? No. Sandra Salazar?
My name is Sandra Salazar, and I live at the Mobile Home Park. That's on the southeast. No, it's just over the hill. It's called Petit Chanteau, and my mobile home is towards the end. Is the last mobile home, but towards the end, right where the project's supposed to be built. Now, there's going to be a lot of noise because of all the traffic. There's going to be smog, and it's just, and then there's children on both sides of the street. There's buses, and there's ambulances, police, and there's been accidents with the truck. And there's been all kinds of, with this project, it's going to make it a lot, it's going to make it worse for the people that live in this mobile home park, even the one across. And there's neighborhood schools for the children. And I've seen some children graduate already, and they seem to be doing good, but there's a lot of children that I've seen in the nurse's office with asthma because of the smoke, the smog. That's not good. So I appreciate if you would take it under consideration, the noise, and like he says, there's a lot of traffic, and they've been putting asphalt all in the street a few times already because there's a lot of trucks that are passing by. They're cracking the street. So, you see where the track's supposed to be? I'm on the other side. But it's up the hill. You got to go up the hill to go into the mobile home park, and then you got to go all the way to the end. And I'm one of the mobile homes that's at the end. So, please, I'd appreciate. Yes. On the right side? No, it's okay. You see where that dirt is right there? That one there. Okay, I'm more on this side, right? Now come up, across the street. No, across the street on Rancho. You got to cross the street on Rancho. I'm right off. My house, my mobile home. You can see Rancho. I'm up a little hill, but you can see Rancho, and you can see that other building that has all those trucks parked in it. You can see that too. It's next to the big house. There's a real big house around there. So there's going to be, and they tore up the sidewalk. The people are walking in the street. They're not walking on the sidewalk because there's no sidewalk.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Pardon?
Thank you.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christian Flores.
Hi, everyone. My name's Christian Flores. I'm a community organizer with Inland Congregations United for Change. I've been working with the mobile home tenants around that neighborhood since the previous project for a freight truck parking spot was passed. And alongside other organizations, that was the first project to be appealed by community members in the history of the city. And since the time this has been brought up, we've been here 3 times because once it was taken off the agenda, but we weren't notified until we were already in the building or meeting had already commenced. And the main reason I'm here is just to echo and share some of the concerns that a lot of the residents have lifted. In the time that we've been here over the last 3 meetings for this particular issue, there's been between 15 to 20 individual unique ID'd residents that have come based on their availability. I know at least 7 folks that wanted to make it out today but couldn't for whatever reason. And there's at least 5 mobile home parks. There's a Santiago mobile home park on the north and on the south. There's Petit Chateau on the south side. There's Glen Oaks, and there's an Oasis on the north side. And that might not be even counting what might be below that. But each one of those mobile home parks has at least 100 different residents, closer to 120 for some. So even though I commend Somos for doing some outreach in that neighborhood, which is something that most developers don't do when it comes to projects in the community, I think it's I challenge the good faith portion of that in regards to the various community members that have been in this room in the past few meetings, and that could have been opportunities to be able to be connected to speak and give presentations at those mobile home sites, because some of them do have communal areas or rooms and lounges where they can make those sorts of presentations and do that community outreach or do it better. But I know the biggest issue is in regards to traffic and specifically those windows of time, because those streets by those mobile home parks are lined up with school buses when kids get picked up and get dropped off. And that area in particular is prone to a lot of accidents. So if those accidents end up exacerbating the traffic, then traffic studies won't be consistent. But I know all that ended up being exempt because of the presumably the zoning, right? It's light and heavy industrial zoning around that area, and it's not the fault of the residents that their mobile home parks are built adjacent to industrial zones. That's just victims of circumstance.
Okay, thank you. Next is Sarah Atzbaha. Oh, okay. Tino Grabtree? Gubry.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tino Gabri, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Mountain View Spring Estates, which is one of the Communities, which is adjacent to the wall, directly impacted by this project. I stand here today with my manager, the property manager for the community. I'm the HOA president, and as of this flyer that came to us, this is the first time that I've heard about this project being presented. I'm in opposition of this project for many reasons, and no one has come to our facility and talked to us about this project. We have monthly HOA meetings, and nobody has approached us or presented anything. I've been the president for, what, 5-6 years now? Approximately. And no one has presented this project to us. I'm concerned because of many reasons. The impact which you heard earlier is one, but the health reasons, the safety issues that have been raised, sure, there's noise that can be affected. The change from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. now to 24/7 is ridiculous. If anybody here, as an investor, owned a property next to something like this, would be very upset if this committee approves something like this. It doesn't matter if there's 100 trees. We heard earlier that from a safety standpoint, the trees are not going to clean up the air. There's other issues here that I would like to point out. I have a minute. The pollution, the noise, the drainage, the runoff, whether it's going to be on a dust type of pavement, gravel, is this the best usage for this type of a property is another thought. The beautification and the impact that it would have in our community, in my opinion, it would lower property values, and more homeowners would want to abandon their homes in that area and sell and move out. I don't recommend approving this project tonight, and I hope that you take that into consideration. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, Leonela Lopez?
Good evening. My name is Leonela Lopez. I stand here today to express my strong opposition to the proposed truck and trailer yard along my property. When I moved here from Riverside, I wasn't hoping finding peace and quiet and to move away from the consistent noise and hustle. The proposed yard threatens to shatter that tranquility. The land where the truck would be parked is more higher than my home, so my home is adjacent from that property. So that land is about 6 feet, give or take, higher than my home. Just to give everybody a little bit of clarity. Yes, they mentioned the mobile homes. The mobile homes, the business on that corner, the mobile homes are above that business from the corner. So they're not really directly affected by that business that's on that corner from the single family homes. I also want to address that, we are all humans, right? Accidents happen. What's going to happen when, for whatever reason, one day one of those big rig drivers backs up and runs through that wall, hurts somebody, kills somebody? Who's gonna compensate us for that? You can't replace a life. Our kids won't be able to safely go up to the backyard and play. Because why? Because we'll have that thought in our head of what if a big rig runs across the brick wall? Brick wall can't hold a big rig. I mean, we've all seen many of accidents in the road. And speaking from someone that works in a warehousing environment, yes, they say there's going to be no loading or offloading during those hours. But if they have reefer units, if you stand next to one of those refrigerated units, you can't even hear yourself speaking to the person next to you. You're having to shout next to that person. The lighting is, it doesn't matter the wall. you can build a 10-foot wall. Like I said, that land is above our homes, and we're going to see that light. And realistically, running a business, even 7 to 7, 7 days a week, after working a long week, you know, we go, we work, try to pay our bills, try to pay our mortgage. We want a day to rest in our homes that we pay for. And now to hear that it's 24 hours that they're proposing, when are we going to be able to rest? Realistically, would you like a home, a yard to be built behind your home? To hear that noise 24/7? I want you guys to put yourself in our shoes when you guys make this decision. And then regarding that, supposedly they reached out to the community. I purchased my home and closed my escrow the last week of April. Then to hear from them that they said that they reached out went out on May 5th, May 6th, whatever the days were. The first notice that I received was that orange letter in the mail this last week. Thank you, guys.
Okay, that's the last. Do I request the presenter?
Yes, if the applicant has any rebuttal they would like to make, this is their time.
Okay, the applicant, you're allowed to come up and make a rebuttal to any of the comments you heard.
We wanted to thank everyone for their comments. Can everyone hear me okay? Thank you, everyone, for your comments. I do appreciate them. To clarify the outreach on the specific dates listed, we went outside the scope of the radius required from the city, but it was not required as an effort to reach out. There were folks who were not available. They were circled back up with on that May 5th and 6th date. With regard to the adjacent property, we had a question about that. This is an unrelated project. I think there's been maybe some conflation about our project and a neighboring project that is not related. With regard to the lighting questions that we're hearing, the lighting would be directed away and towards the building. That's the way the lighting is configured to reduce the impacts. The trees were also not required by the code. That was a request from the city that we're volunteering. In addition to the setbacks from behind. The mandatory setback is 10 feet. We're doubling it. So I wanted to clarify what we're offering and the scope of outreach that we did, including to folks who are in this room who did not return my emails. And we're happy to answer any other questions from staff.
Right. Any more questions? Any more questions from the commission?
Through the chair, you just mentioned what do you say about the setback? The 10-foot?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
The requirement for the rear setback is 10 feet. I'm working together with city staff. We decided to do 17 and a half feet instead of 10 to increase the buffer, making a 6-foot wall to reduce as much as possible and minimize the impacts visually and aesthetically.
Any other commissioner?
Madam Chair, just a question before, it's me, just a question before, if the applicant can address the paving, surface paving issue on the site.
It's proposed as asphalt, so it would be paved, not dirt.
Thank you, through the chair. Can you talk about how what outreach you did? Was it mailers? You mentioned an email. Was it door to door? Can you talk about your outreach?
Yes, we retained a consultant specifically to do the outreach with ties in San Bernardino. Zunu Strategies was responsible for the outreach. On the first outreach, we did door knocking, emails to folks who had spoke up at previous commission hearings to try to cover our bases, and then follow up door to door knockings. Of course, some folks were not home, but it was mostly on the ground door knocking.
Anybody else? Any other commissioners? Go ahead.
A couple comments. Thank you, Madam Chair. San Bernardino is an old city, and there were some comments earlier about you don't choose where things end up, and I think about the area around the BNSF rail yard as an area that's heavy industrial, and you got literally across the street community center and lots of housing. And unfortunately, in an old city like San Bernardino, that's what we have here. I have a real hard time swallowing a 24-hour operation in an area that's largely surrounded by residential. You know, with that being said, I'm going to have a hard time moving forward on this, at least for my vote to move this forward. 24-hour operation. I don't. You know, I understand staff's perspective and their recommendation on it, but, you know, I feel like there's probably a higher and better use for this property, not knowing any of the history, but knowing the history of our city. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
To the chair. You know, I think sitting in these meetings, hearing the community, hearing us, there's a lot of numbers thrown out. There's a lot of I want to say accusations. There's just a lot of comments that it's hard to figure out what are facts, right? You know, I think these decisions are hard to make. I know for me, I'll speak for myself directly, and I hear the community. But the surrounding businesses, what are we doing to, or we have jurisdiction over verifying their hours? It seems like the developers coming here with proposed numbers, but are we actually? You know, I grew up in Rialto, very, very close to that. Obviously, I live here in the 5th Ward now, so I'm very, very familiar with that area. I walked Rancho and Rialto throughout my childhood, so I'm very familiar with the area. There's hours of operations for every business around there are just rampant. They kind of operate whenever they want. So who's enforcing that? It's hard to say. So I know we're throwing out the numbers, and I respect the community for that. But the enforcement, where's that at? You know, moving to this area, you gotta think about those things. You gotta take into consideration the area you're gonna move into. You know, it's zoned a certain way. These are tough decisions, though. But just I'm kind of looking at it from every angle. It's a tough one. I know for sure there's outreach done on both sides. You know, there's gonna be people soliciting the vulnerable neighbors and going over there and saying, hey, look at all these problems, and kind of soliciting them, and there's going to be people on the other end saying, hey, it's going to be a great project. So it goes both ways on that. So I think for me, just try to keep an open mind and take everything into consideration. But these are tough for us, just so you guys understand. It's not sitting up here. Just there's a lot of things to consider. Thank you.
Any other? Go ahead.
Through the chair, thank you. This question might be generated more for staff. The traffic study is not required, but per CEQA regulations, but can we, as staff, request a traffic study analysis?
So our traffic engineer did take a look at the LOS in the traffic scoping form. He approved that, and he said based off of the number of trips that was provided in the traffic scoping form that they stated will be provided, a TIA was not something that he would require.
Can you clarify TIA?
Traffic impact analysis.
Thank you. So, but I'm sorry, excuse me, but that doesn't answer my question. My question was, can us as the Planning Commission request a traffic analysis to be done?
I'm not sure as the Planning Albert?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I had a couple of questions, comments. First of all, I just want to mention that I'm for the project. I know we recently approved a trailer and truck parking lot a couple months back. I personally have a relative that lives in the mobile home, and then a relative that owns a tire shop right in front of this project. And I know the conditions of the asphalt in the area. They're pretty bad, like most of our city streets are. I feel it's unfair to tell a business or a resident what time you can operate your business. What if they told you you can only pull into your driveway from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.? Would you like that? Excuse me. As far as environmental, I think we heard from SCAQMD. The impacts on the air ozone is 80% of vehicles that are moving. This project is stationary. It would fall under the 20%, with the exception of trucks coming in and out, which I believe is going to be very minimal. I hope residents can consider that for future projects as well, because I know even in this property we have illegal dumping. I've seen tires, mattresses, bikes. I drive along these streets maybe a couple or a dozen times a year. My godson lives in the mobile homes within this project area. And like I said, as residents, we need to consider projects moving forward and kind of think outside the box. I live in front of an elementary school. There's lighting that is 24/7 during the night. There's semi-trucks that deliver food for the elementary trucks that I don't like personally. And it happens like every other day from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. I have to put up with the noise. I try to get in your guys' shoes as well, residents, but please understand, it's to better our city, and that's all that I have. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. What restrictions are you placing on the trucks for idling? Is idling allowed? If it's a refrigerator unit, is idling allowed? And if the residents have a complaint, what number can they reach out to notify that their trucks are idling when they're not supposed to?
Thank you, Commissioner. Truck idling is actually governed by SCAQMD. They have truck idling requirements. They may not idle for longer than 15 minutes, depending on the size of the truck, including we heard reference to the refrigerated trucks, the extra loud ones, no longer than 15 minutes, and I believe they're also restricted by time. With respect to a contact, we can contact the applicant and confirm a notification system. But typical notification protocols would be to AQMD, as that would be the violation. It would be a state law, not a city one.
Anyone else?
I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 5. Following
I'm sorry, I got to close, that's it. I need to close public comment first, so that we can vote.
We also need clarification on the hours of operation.
What clarification? Well, can you give us clarification on the hours of operation? Or
Of course.
we need to, okay.
What we're requesting, is that the question, Commissioner? Clarification, we are requesting a 24-hour operation, authorization to operate within a 24-hour period, with the acknowledgement and understanding that all operations would be compliant with the existing City of San Bernardino noise ordinance, all applicable state and federal laws. And with the acknowledgement that the peak hours fall within that 7 to 7 period, but they are not 7 to 7, to clarify. That's not peak. Peak is a much shorter period that happens to fall within that range. It's usually maybe an hour and a half.
Okay, we will now close public.
Madam Chair, before we close public hearing, will the maker of motion specify whether or not the hours of operation are specified, the 24-hour operation, or is it the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.?
I would accept the 24-hour operation, or we could probably make an exception to later clarify that with staff and the applicant.
Absolutely.
But I would prefer to approve this item and move it forward and come back to hours of operation.
Good. So we have a motion by Commissioner Garcia. We need a second for discussion purposes.
I will second that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Garcia, seconded by Commissioner Quill. We can now have
We can vote?
A vote on that motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Chair Armstead?
No.
Commissioner Quill? Yes. Commissioner Daly?
No.
Commissioner Lopez?
No.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrick? I'm sorry, I'm clarifying. Did we close the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh, it's a hard one for me again. No. Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
Yes.
Vote is 3 yes, 4 no.
Motion failed, so we can now consider an alternative motion. If
Madam Chair?
Alternative motion is what he's asking.
Madam Chair, I'd like to recommend staff deny Planning Commission Resolution 2024-012.
we need a second.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Daly, seconded by Chair Armstead. Go for the vote.
Chair Armstead?
Motion, yeah. Motion to deny.
So yes.
Is it a yes or a no?
Yes to deny.
Okay.
Vice Chair Quill? Commissioner Daly?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes to deny.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
No.
Commissioner Sherrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
No.
Vote is 4 yeses and, yeah, 4 yeses, 3 noes.
3 noes.
The denial passes.
Passes. Motion passes.
So, staff drafted the resolution for approval. My recommendation here is the decision has been made to deny, but you don't have a resolution that denied the project. Your resolution that was presented is for approval. So staff will prepare a resolution for denial that will come on your next meeting agenda. You won't be deciding whether to approve or deny. You already did that. You denied it. All you'll be deciding on is, does the written resolution capture the reasons why you have denied it? But staff needs direction on that. And so staff needs to hear from you here tonight. What are the reasons that you denied it? That way they can write up the findings for denial.
Okay, so we are requesting that the staff draft a resolution for denial. One of the reasons, I believe, is the proximity to the residences, the single-family residences and the motorhomes, and the impact, we did not realize the impact on the schools, so the impact of the traffic. Anyone else?
I have concerns with traffic and the hours.
Say hours of operation, traffic, incompatible land uses.
Anyone else? Anyone else have conditions for the staff to write the resolution?
This is just to support a denial, right?
Yes. Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, the findings that we have to make for these types of uses are actually specified in our zoning ordinance. So if you go to page number 3, under findings for development permit type 22-05, you see the findings, which is, for example, finding number 1, the proposed development is one permitted within the subject zoning district and complies with all of the applicable provisions of this development code, including prescribed developments, site standards, and all applicable design guidelines. So the finding of fact would have to be tailored to the finding itself. So for example, if you said no, the project is not consistent with whatever it is, you have to give us some kind of reasons why. Because intellectually, I could say, oh yeah, it's adjacent to residential property, I don't like it, but we have to now come up with a finding that is identified in our municipal code to support that statement.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there an opportunity at this point for an alternative motion if the applicant would be willing to do a traffic analysis and if the applicant would be okay with their original hours that they stated?
Do you want to? Madam Chair, yes, but we have to now go back and revise our the motions that have already been made. If you want to make a modification for I think what what I'm hearing is that we want some additional information before we actually make a decision, and one of that would be for a traffic analysis to be done. Now, it's up to the applicant to say, yes, we agree to that. Then we would take the motions off the table. We would table the application to the next planning commission meeting, or whenever it is they can get the traffic analysis done. We'll come back with the traffic analysis that would either support or refute any kind of comments that have been made during the meeting, and then we can make a separate motion at the time as to whether or not we want to go forward or not.
Okay. That's what I would like to do.
Okay.
Can we look at, like, finding number 3? Could that be one?
I'm sorry. Did we took a vote just now?
Yeah.
To deny, we made a motion and we denied staff's recommendation. So I'm confused as to why now we need to give further direction to staff to come back with denial, and now we're opening up a whole nother conversation about reintroducing a vote.
I'm going to let Albert go into it. So as I explained earlier, if there seems to be the feeling that maybe we were not provided with enough information for us to make a judgment specifically, because when it comes to making these findings, we have to make findings that are specified in our municipal code. So, and then if, for example, the traffic analysis could point to a specific finding that might support one thing or the other. But in order for that to take place, the commission has to decide whether or not any of those votes that have been taken, the last one to deny, should be taken off the table, bring additional analysis back, whenever it is we have the next scheduled planning commission meeting, reconsider it, and then if the commission still believes that, we've heard all the evidence, we still want to go with a denial, then that decision will be made at that time. But the applicant has to agree to do that before we go forward.
So, excuse me, I have a question. You said if we can specify which findings. I'm looking at finding number 3, finding number 7.
Okay. So
You said we had to pinpoint findings.
Finding number 3.
Number 3 and number 7.
So the proposed development would be harmonious and compatible with existing and future development within the zone and general area, as well as with the land use presently on the subject property. That is finding number 3. Within the zone, which is light industrial, and the general area, which is it's surrounded by, residential to the south, mobile home park to the southwest, industrial to the east. If you go north, it's a mixture of. So if you look at the zoning map, it is. I think, as Commissioner Orlando Garcia said, I mean, it could go either way. I mean, you have grounds to say that, well, it's surrounded by industrial uses, but I think that human interest part of it, having these voices of people who actually live there, address the Planning Commission tugs at our hearts, and I totally respect that. I brought this forward because it is a difficult decision to make, because the property is correctly zoned, the use is allowed in that zone. So then we start making analysis about how do we, from my perspective, how do we make this proposal work with the existing uses? Well, that's why you see these conditions regarding hours of operation and landscaping. So we are trying to make this more palatable, but if this is going to become a 24-hour operation, then, perhaps additional analysis need to be done as whether or not there'll be additional noise impacts, because our zoning ordinance basically has decibel levels from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So what happens after 7 p.m. would be much louder than what would happen at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So these kinds of nuances kind of puts the project in a totally different realm. And maybe the wise thing for us to do really is to maybe pull back, reconvene, think about it a little bit more, and find out with the cooperation of the applicants whether they are willing to concede to certain things that would make this palatable, because that human interest portion of it is going to be tugging at each and every person. And I know it has already affected some of the outcome of some of the decisions that we've made this particular evening.
Well, in that case, wouldn't we need a traffic study, the increased traffic and pollution and road damage?
Well, I mean, we
you've
could
got
look at
schools
we could
around
look at
there.
all those things, but again, we have to look at how much of that are you going to attribute to this particular use itself. I mean, that roadway has been bad before. The air quality has been bad before the project. And so I guess the only thing is, how do we harmonize this particular use with the existing uses and being respectful to everybody's concern, as opposed to, looking at just one perspective of it. So, I mean, this is a very, very difficult decision for me to actually bring it before the Planning Commission, because I know it can go either way, but it's only coming to the Planning Commission because it is adjacent to residential. If this was not adjacent to residential, there will be no Planning Commission hearing on this
true.
particular thing.
And number 5 would address quite a bit of that. The finding of fact is very brief and doesn't really answer the concerns that we heard
No,
from the
well,
community.
I mean, let me read finding number 5. No potential significant negative impacts upon environmental quality and natural resources. Well, what are the natural resources in that area? We're not taking down any trees, so it's a vacant site. Some people will actually believe that this is actually an improvement on the vacant parcel, because you go there and tires are thrown and all kinds of things. So we have to look at the specific language of the finding itself, because emotions get involved in these kinds of things, and we draw conclusions, things of that nature. So that makes my job very, very difficult. So and I'm expecting the Planning Commission to maybe sometimes put those emotions aside and take a practical look at this particular situation.
Okay,
Because
so let's
we're
take out
struggling
the
with it.
emotion and address the scientific fact. There are environmental issues
Okay.
that you can look at scientifically. That's not emotional.
What
That's
are
science,
the
and that's not
environmental issues?
smog, pollution, traffic,
We heard from the
the
AQMD.
damage to the roads.
We heard from
year-round
AQMD.
schools.
Roads
Now,
are already
those are
bad.
facts. That's not emotion.
Roads are already bad. So again, what portion of the existing conditions would this project worsen? So that's what we have to look at. How would this project make existing conditions worse?
Madam Chair? Just a couple of questions. And I fully appreciate where you're coming from. I understand that. It's a difficult spot. Again,
Very
got,
difficult.
A variety of incompatible land uses around, what are probably, San Bernardino's 1810, right? That's when we incorporated, so 214 years. I guess my confusion is maybe a procedural set of confusions. And City Attorney, you indicated that we've now made a decision. We've voted. We've got a majority vote and decision that's already been made here. And now it feels like we're being asked to justify the decision back to staff to move forward. And I guess my thinking is, it seems like the denial has been approved, and therefore the next step ought to be staff coming back to us with a reconfiguration of this resolution to recommend denial per the decision that was just made here. So I don't understand the back and forth that's happening right now.
It's because the reasons for the denial have to come from the commission. It cannot come from staff. Staff already provided their recommendation to you. The recommendation was approval. So the reasons for the denial have to come from the commission. And staff was just trying to elicit, okay, of the 7 findings, tell me which ones cannot be met, and tell me what the reason is so I can write it up. That's why we're having this process. Let me add another thought that might help with this. The developer, I think, probably should be asked, because Commissioner Sherrick brought up, well, you're basically going down the road of maybe a motion for reconsideration. You were in the majority, but your question indicates maybe you would be open to a 7-7 pending the results of the traffic study, etc. But the developer, I think, needs to be asked, would they even be open to that, or rather they'd just rather appeal to council? Because if they rather just appeal to council, then it doesn't have to be discussed anymore and we can move on to the next item. If they are open to the idea, then someone needs to who voted in the majority, one of the 4 of you, needs to make a motion for reconsideration if that's what you actually want to do. That motion needs to be seconded. That motion has to pass. And then a new motion could be brought to either approve, subject to other conditions, or continue to the next meeting. But again, it has to be one of the 4 who voted yes to deny, to change your vote. Only one of those 4.
And Casey, I have a follow-up question with what you asked, because our denials, because our denials have to be based on the findings, not something outside of those findings. So when we're saying traffic is an issue for us, when we're saying hours of operation are an issue for us, those aren't part of the findings and a basis for denial. Is that what I'm understanding?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. I was conferring with Chantel, and perhaps from what we have heard, finding number 2 about consistency with the general plan, because it talks about integrating and minimizing impacts on surrounding land uses. I heard several of you say you don't think that there's compatible land uses here, the industrial light with the residential next door. That could be one of the buckets you land your reasons in. Finding number 3, Chairperson Armstead, you mentioned that. I think that's probably another bucket, because again, it's that language about being harmonious and compatible with existing and future developments. So I think actually, if you just want to proceed down the path you've already started upon, of denying the project, I think staff is pretty close about getting the information that they need to write it up. And I would ask Chantel if she has any input and she would like any additional detail or information. So that's what you have before you. Do you want to continue down denial and provide staff the reasons, and then they'll bring back to you a resolution memorializing the denial that already happened tonight? Or do you want to reconsider the whole project? Those are kind of the 2 paths before you.
I'm motioning to proceed with the original motion to denial, and we provided staff with some of our reasons for that.
Okay, so with that, Chair Armstead, I know you were saying which finding were you looking more towards? 3 and 7. Okay. Can you just give me elaborate more why you feel that the project does not meet these findings? Are you directing that towards finding 3?
high traffic, danger to school areas, and that's the main thing, and the destruction of the road. And then
Is
number
there-
7, let's see what I had. I believe I said number 7.
Just to clarify, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
So, number 3 is the proposed development will not be harmonious nor compatible with the existing future development within the zone and general area. So you're saying because it's a truck parking, it's not compatible with the
Truck traffic, then truck parking and truck traffic.
yeah.
We
it's
have,
not
forgot
compatible
about
with
the
adjacent.
The adjacent properties, right, which is high residential. You got motorhome parks, and you have single-family residential. You have several schools in the area that your map did not show, or the findings did not show, but obviously there's quite a few schools with children being picked up, school buses coming through the area because of that. The other environmental would be the pollution, all those trucks, and the damage to the roadway. I believe I covered that.
Are there any other commissioners that wanted to
The other one?
provide more
Number
input?
7.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just to just make sure that finding number 2, general plan element goal 2.2, promote development that integrates with and minimizes impact on surrounding land uses. I would object to that one.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, you will, okay, so you'll object to finding number 2?
No, I in support of this whole, justification to staff as to why we want, I would identify finding of fact, finding number 2, general plan goal 2.2.
Okay, if you could tell me why you feel like it doesn't,
Because I don't believe that this promotes development that integrates with and minimizes impacts on surrounding land uses. Thank you. And if we need to add some more, I would go with finding of fact number 5.
Great, all right.
and what was your reason for it not being?
I believe that there could be potential significant negative impacts upon environmental quality and natural resources.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so now, what do we do?
Now you can move on to the next item.
Oh, all right. We are now going to, can we take a short break, please? It's been a minute. About 5 minutes, sir? About 5 minutes. We're taking a 5-minute break, please. Okay, everyone, let's take our seats and come back to order. Come on, everyone. Everyone, let's continue. We're ready to continue. Okay, this is for item number 7.
Item 6.
6.
Oh, 6?
6.
6, I'm sorry, 6. Item number 6.
Okay. Thank you. Item number 6 is extension of time 24-02 for subdivision 20-06 and development permit type D 20-08. Here is, it's a 1-year time extension request for subdivision, as I mentioned, 20-06 for tentative track map 20376 and development permit type P 20-08 for the subdivision of one parcel containing approximately 0.77 acres into 9 residential lots, and the construction of 9 two-story detached residential units that are going to contain approximately 1,905 square feet, with attached garages that will contain approximately 441 square feet. The project site is located on the northwest corner of East Pacific Street and North Garden Avenue Drive within the residential medium zone. Okay. Here we have the proposed project site for what the extension is being brought. As you see, it's within the residential medium zone, and it is surrounded with existing residential development as well as near a existing school to the west. Here we have the aerial map of the project site. This whole southern part area is a mixture of single-family residential within the county of San Bernardino's jurisdiction. And then we have some existing multifamily and single-family residential. And then we have an existing elementary school there. In accordance with Section 19.4408 of the Development Permits Time Extension, Section 66452.22 of the California Subdivision Map Act, and the requirements of the Section 19.66 of the City of San Bernardino Development Code, the applicant is requesting a 1-year time extension, which this would be the first extension for the project. The reason for the request is that they're currently in the process of trying to complete the final map and the construction documents. And so the applicant is requesting for both the tentative tract map under the subdivision application and the development permit expiration date for a period not to exceed 12 months. So essentially, the extension would extend the project until April 12th of 2025. To further clarify, in accordance with the Subdivision Map Act, which supersedes our city's development code, within the staff report, there was a notation that our development code allows for 3 extension periods. However, the Subdivision Map Act supersedes our development code and actually allows for the maps themselves under the tentative tract maps through the subdivision application to be extended for a period not to exceed 6 years. In this case, since it is a combined application, that's why they're just requesting the 1-year extension. Here we have the existing site looking northwest from East Pacific Street and North Garden Avenue Drive. This is just for reference, so that way you see what was originally approved as part of the project. We have the 9 residential units. They're at the corner. The models, floorings for Model A and B, and then a mirror image of Model A and B. Here are the elevations for Model A and Model B. And then there are going to do some initial landscaping. In the original approval of the project, there was a request to add some an additional screened wall here facing the elementary school, so that way kids aren't like jumping over or like vagrants. So they are going to be providing that additional, thank you. They're going to be providing that additional screening as part of the project, and that is currently going through the construction phase. So those conditions and all previously approved conditions will continue to remain on the project as part of this extension of time. So with that, the Planning Commission, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2024-018, finding the extension of time 24-02 exempt pursuant to section 15061B3, review for exemption, in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, directing the Planning Commission Secretary to prepare and file with the Clerk of the County of San Bernardino a notice of exemption as provided under Public Resources Code Section 21152B and CEQA Guidelines Section 15062, and approving extension of time 24-02 for subdivision 20-06 for tentative track map 20376 and development permit type D 20-08, subject to the aforementioned conditions of approval. Those additional conditions of approval have also been identified within the resolution for the extension of time. The applicant is here for any additional points of clarifications as it relates to the status of the project.
Okay, we will now open for public hearing. Do we have any comments, commissioners? I have one public, Christine Sharp.
The side? Okay, well, I'm glad you guys can hear me because couldn't hear you guys all night long, especially the people who are trying to push whatever they want to push on anything. My family has lived in this valley since we came to this valley and covered wagons. My family has owned land in this neighborhood for 96 years. I'm the last one. When I first heard about this thing going on about 2002, got crammed in here and found out this and that. The reason why this land right here, this corner property has never been developed is it's a site for well number 1 for the Baseline Mutual Water Gardens for site well number 1. Once in, 2008. No, wait a minute. Way ahead of myself. I'm getting way ahead of. There's so much to say about this. The reason why this land shouldn't be developed on is it can take only 2 parcels, not 9. They're going to have 5 bedrooms apiece, each one of these houses, on this postage stamp piece of property. Where do you live? Beverly Hills. What does he do? Buy a whole bunch of properties in Rialto, this way and that way, grab a whole bunch of stuff. These houses are going to sell for over $1 million a piece. This is not going to help out the neighborhood. All right? On the corner, look at your little map and everything back again on the corner of Pacific Street and Garden Drive. Just that corner. He needs time to get things handled because he's running into some obstacles. Coming off the hill is the main drag from Paris Hill of the power on each side of those power or transformers on each side, which brings power to the entire city block below from Pacific to Baseline over to Del Rosa. I've been up on the hill before when the guy was up there going, hey, threw the big main power switch and brought the lights back up. That was on the 4th of July, not last year, the year before. So it holds all the power. That there is so much stuff underneath the ground, cesspools this way and that way. Pacific High School, when you guys brought up at the last planning meeting, you were more concerned about, what about, their privacy? What about the privacy of the people who are already there? These towers looking down into their property, it's ridiculous. This land cannot support it. Anything more than a 3, if we have an earthquake, that ground's going to liquefy. There is no solid rock underneath it. Paris Hill, right there. We all know that is a watershed. It's a, hidden hill, Up is 10.5 million gallons of water in there. It's a fake mountain. It's not real. Inside is big, huge watershed. We get an earthquake, it's going to crack wide open, and that whole area is going to flood.
Thank
Think
you,
he's going to
ma'am.
let these people know?
Thank you,
it's
ma'am.
I have everything. My name is Christine Sharp. My address is 6937 Garden Drive. Please get in touch with me. I have the proof. I have stuff
Thank
to
you, ma'am.
show you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm not a liar. I'm not cramming this through. I can prove it to you.
Do we have any more public speakers on item number 6? No? Okay. Then, Go ahead. Then we need to call for a motion on item number, wait, oh, no, we will close, thank you. We will now close public hearing. And I need a motion on item number 6.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation as is.
Second.
Okay, and then remember, we're clarifying, this is for an extension.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Chair Armstead?
Yes.
Vice Chair Quill?
Yes.
Commissioner Daly?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
Yes.
Vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item number 7 is extension of time 24-03 for conditional use permit 21-13. The proposed project is a request for a 1-year extension of time for conditional use permit 21-13. The project that was previously approved under this body was a conversion of an existing approximately 2,230 square foot single-family residence with an approximate 950 square foot addition to a place of public assembly religious facility. The project site is located at 1959 North Macy Street within a 0.52 acre site within the residential suburban zone designation. Here we have the existing zoning area for the map. It is surrounded primarily by a lot of existing residential. There are some additional existing other religious facility here to the site. A little bit of the background of the project. I did want to add and incorporate this for the transparency of the record. In accordance with section 19.60.030, minor modifications of the development code, an approval was granted to allow for an increase of 170 square feet and modify the architectural design for the proposed remodel and conversion of the existing 2,230 square foot single family residence. That was something that was allowed and approved at a staff level review, since minor modifications that do not exceed 10% can be done at staff level. That improved the design of the project site and made a more cohesive project and incorporated some additional square footage that they needed for their assembly area. Additionally, as it relates to the extension of time, when the applicant's expiration date, it's not to exceed 12 months. Essentially, they're wanting the expiration to be extended to April 12th of 2025. The applicant has faced extenuating circumstances that unfortunately have prevented them from commencing construction. They are going through the construction phase, and for this reason, they are completing those construction documents to get ready to pull permits. They are here to provide additional details and information about the extenuating circumstances if they would like to. Here we have the existing site for the project development. Here, this is the proposed. Previously, they had a smaller addition essentially here to the rear of the property. Instead of just doing a, I guess, connection of an addition, they decided to just completely redo the whole facade and just do a more uniform integration of the facility. With that, they're going to continue to do the improvement for parking, landscaping, lighting, setbacks associated with the project. Here we have the existing mosque as it is right now and in the moment, but they are going to incorporate a lot of new addition, separation in terms of the facilities associated with their religious practices. This is the new proposed improvement to the exterior elevations. Before, they didn't really have this exterior elevation. It was more like an open glass window. Now it's more uniform, more enclosed, thicker to enclose some of the additional buffering for minimizing noise to be a better neighbor. And with that, I would, the staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2024-019, finding the extension of time 24-03 exempt pursuant to section 15061B3, review of exemption in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, directing the Planning Commission Secretary to prepare and file with the Clerk of the County of San Bernardino a notice of exemption as provided under Public Services Resources Code Section 21152B and CEQA Guidelines Section 15062, and approving extension of time 24-03 for conditional use permit 21-13, subject to the aforementioned conditions of approval that were previously approved as part of the project. Before ending, I do want to add some additional points of clarification as it relates to some minor typos within the resolution. On the body of the resolution, there's a duplication in terms of the square footage. It was a repeat of a same sentence structure, and where now we're removing single-family residence containing approximately 2,230 square feet, with an addition containing approximately 950 square feet, removing it twice because it's on there twice. So I wanted to make that point of clarification. And then additionally, within the staff report, I did add here in the verbal staff report that the square footage is actually 170 square feet for the minor modification, not 160 square feet. So I wanted to add those points of clarification. And then lastly, when we do open it for public comments, there is a comment that was submitted electronically via email, and the commission should have that information on there. So if I need to further clarify, I can do that once public comment is opened.
Okay, we will now open the public hearing. First, commissioners? No? I have several people that would like to make comments. Alberto Lopez.
Chairperson,
Oh, what?
I'm sorry. I think the applicant is here. Is that right, Elizabeth?
Yes, the applicant is here.
The applicant is here. I would invite them up, see if they have any
Okay.
comments first.
May the applicant come up, please? The applicant first.
Hi, my name is Christine Arias. I'm here to represent the engineer. And our applicant, he is asking for an extension for the already submitted CUP application. He would like to get the extension to have more time for the plans to be approved and to be able to complete the construction. Okay. If you would like to add anything, the applicant?
Okay, Alberto Lopez?
No.
No? Oh, that's an applicant? That's the applicant? Oh.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Alberto López.
Good evening, my name is Alberto Lopez.
El motivo por el cual estoy aquí es que no estoy en contra de ninguna religión, de nada. Soy vecino de la mezquita que está a la par mía. Mi esposa hizo el comentario en línea.
Okay, the reason why I'm here, I'm not against any religion. There is a religious temple that is next to, I'm neighbor of the religious temple that is next to it. And my wife, she made the, ¿qué es lo que hizo reclamo?
Ella metió este papel. Sus concerns.
¿Qué es?
El concepto.
Oh, okay. Oh, my wife submitted her concerns.
El motivo era que si va a ser aprobado la mezquita, por lo menos que cuente con su buen parqueo, la barda de bloque que divide mi casa con las de ellos, porque todo el tiempo tengo mucho ruido. Llevo viviendo 20 años ahí y siempre hemos tenido un poco de conflicto por el ruido, el megáfono.
Okay, if this religious temple is going to be built, I believe they have to have this proper parking lot. And, you know, there is a wall that divides my home with this temple. So through the years, we always have issues with the noise, with the megaphone.
Ellos usan mucho el ruido del megáfono y pues a veces mi esposa trabaja 12 horas, es enfermera, yo también trabajo y a veces el sistema de ellos no tienen un horario, más los viernes que me bloquean siempre mi parking, el mailbox.
¿Mailbox?
Sí, la caja donde depositan el correo.
¿Cuántas horas dice?
A veces están todo el día viernes, están hasta las 7, 8 de la noche el ruido.
Yeah, their noise is long hours. On Fridays is my wife work, I work, you know, and on Fridays they block my mailbox.
Pues ese es nomás lo que tengo yo para decirle, que si los planos van a ser aprobados, que exijan el sistema antirruido, por lo menos un drywall más fuerte, 5 octavos, una pared de bloque nos divida, porque tenemos una pared de metal y siempre cuando hay reuniones los niños matan el metal y se oye el ruido muy fuerte.
Yes, if they give approval for this, probably they need to build this wall with made of block, not metal, because kids, they hit the metal and it causes a lot of noise. And probably, I don't know, use drywall.
Para el ruido, nomás el drywall adentro, para el noise.
Yeah, use drywall just to help with the noise, you know, from the inside.
Eso es todo, nomás para que ellos están aquí presentes. Yo no estoy en contra de su religión, yo respeto todas las religiones que existen. Creo yo también en lo mío y ellos en lo de ellos, y para que no lo vayan a tomar a mal.
Yeah, they are here present, and you know, I respect their religion. I believe on what I believe, and I respect what they believe, and I don't want them to take it personal, take it wrong. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Next. Uh-huh. Oh. Is the applicant?
The applicant is one of the applicant
the
represented. Yes. He's one of the applicant representative in terms of the group that's working through the construction documents, so he might be able to provide some additional insight.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Radi Khatib. I'm already on the list to speak. I just need to address some of the stuff that the gentleman next door is our neighbor. We respect our neighbors. Let's start with the first one. He says we park against his mailbox, but we purchased the two lots next to our mosque, and you can see the plans showing plenty of parking, so that will not be happening again. Also, he addressed the fence between us. Actually, there's not going to be no more metal fence. It's going to be not a 6-inch wall, but an 8-inch wall, center block with a concrete filled in to eliminate any noise for our neighbors. So we just need the extension to finish the project. My brother, who started this project, passed away with cancer last year, and we just want to finish up what he started, and we are here today to ask you for your extension to let us have our dream for the masjid. We are a good community. We help the needy. We have food bank. We supply the poor. We are always helping the people with alcohol issues. People seek help with us, with our guidance, and we try to make a community better no matter where we go. This is just part of our religion. I appreciate your time. and I hope you approve us. Thank you.
Thank you. May we have Amro Abdallah?
My name is Amro Abdallah. I'm an imam in the mosque, Makki Masjid, and also I'm a CPA, a certified public accountant. I want to start my talk by the salutation of Adam when he was created to the angels. Excuse me. As he said, Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you. So I was really shocked about the complaint of our neighbor, Brother Lopez. I am sure he, if he talked to any of the responsible persons in the mosque, then it would be solved. This is one thing, simply because it is in the religion of Islam, it is very important to take care of the neighbor. To the extent that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that Gabriel, the angel, kept telling me, take care of your neighbor, take care of your neighbor, take care of your neighbor, until I thought he is going to be one of those who are going to inherit me. So this is something we need to put into consideration. And personally, and I am, of course, we have a lot who are attending. I wish that we take care of this. This is have nothing to do with the approval. It's a matter of answering not to the commission here, but answering to a very, very high authority, Allah. We say Allah, and Allah means God. But we say Allah, and we insist on it because the human beings made a lot of fake gods. Like God for good luck usually is in Vegas. God for love in Hawaii and Honolulu. So we say Allah means the one who created us, the creator. I really appreciate the committee here, and I want to thank you on behalf of the community, and I want to tell you how much your committee is appreciated. The reason I'm sure none of you knows that most of the human beings think that we are here on this planet as a punishment for the first sin, eating from the forbidden fruit or tree. Well, as a matter of fact, if this is a punishment, it will be a beautiful punishment because we are living here a beautiful life. Thank God for that. But in reality, this is not a punishment. We are here because in a mission. Adam and Eve was sent here in a mission to populate this planet and making better. So you are responsible for planning this San Bernardino area and make it better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Have a nice evening.
Next, we'll have Christine Elias. Oh, you're okay. Then we have James Penman.
Is it on? Thank you. I'm here tonight pretty much as a constitutionalist. I saw this item on the agenda, and I didn't suspect that there would be any opposition, and there really hasn't been a lot. But one of the most fundamental parts of our Constitution is the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom of religion. Freedom of religion. And as a lawyer and a constitutionalist, I'm always concerned that the city doesn't get sued and that we follow the law. I'm sure your city attorney would echo this, that because you routinely approve most requests for extension, and you just approved one a few minutes ago, in the unlikely event that you might not approve this one, you would certainly be subject to a lawsuit that you would certainly lose based on religious freedom. The fact that a religious organization is the applicant puts a very different spin on any application. It really isn't the same because it's a protected group. And again, it's one of the most fundamental bases of American democracy that we have freedom of religion. So please forgive my, I hesitate to use the word pontificating, and I sympathize with the gentleman who has his next door is concerned about the noise. But for many years when I was city attorney here, we routinely got complaints about the bells at Holy Rosary Church on Arrowhead. And we just had to tell the folks, sorry, it's part of our great country. Thank you.
Any comments by the commissioners? We're good? Go ahead, sir.
No comments for me. I'll just wait till they're ready to
Okay.
go forth and prosper.
We will now close for public hearing. And this motion is just for the extension. The project was already approved in 2022. We are approving the extension, am I correct? Just the extension for a year. All right. So I need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the recommendation as is.
I'll second that.
Chair Armstead?
Yes.
Vice Chair Quill?
Yes.
Commissioner Daly?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
Yes.
Vote passes unanimously.
And I believe we are able to adjourn? Wait.
We got planning commission and planning
Oh.
directors.
Oh, I don't even see that. Okay. Do we have any directors' reports? I'm sorry.
Planning commissions.
It's not on here. You didn't put it on the screen. The last one? Okay. Do we have any planning commissioner reports?
Yeah. Could we?
Let them go first. Okay. Planning commissioner reports?
I do not have a report, but I have a question for staff. In tonight's agenda, and in the sake of time, I'll make it real quick. The situation with the truck and trailer operation over on Rancho, we approved one that was Elliott Blocks here a year or so ago. I understand, and we talked about zoning and some of the other issues over there. But one of the problems I had this evening is there were some conditions applied to that, to what staff was going to approve. However, in our recommendations here, staff says nothing about the, to include the conditions. And I think it was very difficult for the people to come here and for us commissioners to deal with those conditions, not knowing whether or not they have discussed them with staff. So isn't it normal that you generally deal with the conditions at your level at the planning department, and then they are discussed and brought forward to us?
You're absolutely right, Commissioner. I pointed out that the conditions needed some work. In particular, the hours of operation, it was not concrete. The original language said that the hours of operation shall be considerate of the neighboring residential use. It's not an enforceable condition. It has to have a starting time and an end time. And there were other issues with the other conditions just like that, like the landscaping. It did not specify the species. So if we're going to require a species, it needs to say what species we're requiring. I didn't review it, have it to review until after the agenda was posted. And so that's why this happened, because my comments didn't arise until after the agenda packet had posted.
Thank you for bringing that up. I would probably suggest, and maybe if we had to do over again, they should have probably taken those conditions back and reworked it, and we probably should have brought that back at a later time. So that's just my thought.
I have an announcement. I would like to re-elect the Planning Commission chair now that we have a full team. Another reason was I was absent at the time, and I had someone in mind that I wanted to appoint or vote for elect as our chairperson. So I'm not sure how we would go about doing that.
There would need to be a motion to add as an agenda item at the next meeting to remove the current chair and to elect a new chair. That motion would need a second and would have to pass by simple majority vote.
So can I make that motion tonight?
Yes,
To add it
to add, yes.
to next month's agenda to re-elect or elect the new chairperson, change the Planning Commission chairperson. And then would I need to give the person, or how would we go about, or who I want to elect?
That would be
chairperson?
premature. Assuming your motion passes tonight, you could bring a motion at the next meeting. That would be the appropriate time.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to change our Planning Commission chairperson.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Garcia, seconded by Commissioner Cool. Call for.
Could I ask just a clarifying question? When is the regularly scheduled selection of the chair and vice chair?
It's usually January.
Okay.
And at any time, your bylaws allow a new, what is the right wording? It's kind of late. Allow you to replace the chair or vice chair at any time. The bylaws allow for that.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. We need to call for the vote. And the motion is to have an item on the next agenda to discuss this particular item. So that's what this motion is. So the yay votes would allow us to put this item on the agenda at the next Planning Commission meeting for discussion.
Okay. Chair Armstead? No. Vice Chair Quill?
Yes.
Commissioner Daly?
Well, this is only my second meeting, so professional courtesy, I'll agree to, I'll vote yes to put it on so we can discuss it at our next meeting.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
Yes.
Vote is 6-1. It passes.
So at the next Planning Commission meeting, we'll have an item for discussion regarding the election of planning commissioners to positions on the Planning Commission, without really tailoring what the outcome of that is going to be. So, great. Well,
I want to remind the commission that what did we talk about before? About there was a second agenda item that I said during Planning Commission comments. Commissioner Sherrick, can you remind us, please?
Yes, to look at adding a requirement or making sure that warehouses over 1,000 square feet comply with the WARE program, or that's one of the items of condition. And
Thank you.
wanted
So
to
this
ask
is
to make that
okay.
motion. I would like to make that motion that we agendize it for discussion at the next council planning commission meeting as well.
okay.
And I had one more comment just for staff. Really impressed with the laptops. I really appreciate that. It's a helpful tool because I'm always checking online. I like to see like the Google Maps, and like I'm a visual person, like to touch and see what I'm looking at. Really appreciate that. I think the city is really improving throughout our city, even throughout our staff, and just keep up the good work. Thank you.
Do you need a second?
Yes, there's a motion on the floor.
And I agree with the computers, so yeah, 100%.
So we need a second for Commissioner Sherrick's motion.
I'll make that second.
So motion by Commissioner Sherrick, seconded by Commissioner Daly. Call for the vote.
Chair Armstead? Vice Chair Quill?
Yes.
Commissioner Daly?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
So can I get clarification on the motion? Yeah, I didn't really.
My motion is to bring back an item for discussion over the WARE program and how that would relate to our conditions of approval.
Wasn't it to modify the, wasn't that the original conversation to modify the development code and?
But we have to bring it back for discussion.
Okay, no.
Okay. Vote is 6-1. It passes.
Any other Planning Commission comments, questions, announcements? Thank you, commissioners. It looks like we have a good group of planning commissioners. We have a few absences today, but I think we're kind of going towards what I would like to see us become as a planning commission, but also to emphasize the relationship between staff and the planning commission. The planning commission, you are the land use authority for the city, whether you believe that or not. And your decisions are very, very important to us, and they're very important, very, very important to the city council as well. So from that particular standpoint, we expect certain levels of technicalities in the decisions that you make. I'm not saying there are no technicalities. I'm just saying going forward, we want to work with you to establish a very strong, consistent planning commission that we go very deep into, land use issues, because we want to change this city. So having said that, we delivered on the laptops, so I'm glad you like them. One of the items we had planned for tonight's meeting was the Jeopardy, Brown Act Jeopardy. We couldn't do that today because we had so many items on the agenda, and the AQMD presentation actually took a little bit longer. So we'll be bringing back the Brown Act Jeopardy at the next Planning Commission meeting, rain or shine. So with that, thank you all. Commissioner Kuhl, I'm meeting you for the first time. Welcome back. Good to see you. And that concludes my report. So meeting adjourned at 10:01. Wow. I knew it.